Hi guys. First off, congratulations on the 6th anniversary of the theatrical release of Up.
Thank you. Today is the day.
Today.
Yeah. Thank you. Nice. May 29th. Thank you.
So my question was just, how do you balance between the manner in which the emotions influence Riley and how Riley and her experiences influence the emotions?
Good question. That was a tricky balance, and we really spent a large part of the, I'd say, 3.5 years working that out. In fact, at one point we even thought, like, is Riley her emotions? Like, are the 5 of them, do they control her, kind of like a giant robot or something? Right. And we worked it out. No, kind of like us, we don't choose to feel something, we just do, right? I don't choose to, I think I should feel scared. Maybe, yeah, I think no, it just happens to you. How you then act on it is up to you, right? So Riley is her own character that these guys can love and care for. But her decisions affect the world down below. So as I keep thinking it's down below, but it's in the head. So as Joy makes her way through this movie, you'll see that it has concrete effects on the world, like the physical space.
Awesome.
So
Thank
that
you.
was tough.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
All right, we'll start this thing. Hey everyone, I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Brian Koch.
And today, this is the Coco countdown thing.
Is that the countdown until we get a Coco Bolo desk for our dorm room?
I don't even know what that is.
Coco Bolo. It's a type of...
I don't know.
I've never seen Better Call Saul. All right.
No, I've not seen Better Call Saul.
Okay.
But anyway, what is the Coco desk countdown? Well, I'll tell you. It's when Brian and I watch and review every theatrically released Pixar film ever made, ever, until the Coco comes out.
It's interesting you always say theatrically released. There aren't any direct-to-video Pixar films.
That's
there are
true.
direct-to-video films that take place within the universe.
Well, it could be like the short film or something.
I guess that's true. Yeah. Or a TV special.
Or a TV special. No, we only do the feature-length theatrical films here. We don't do nothing else.
Rule.
We have very strict rules. And today, for the 15th Coco countdown bonanza, we have
bonanza.
It is a bonanza now. We have a doozy for you guys. We're doing one of my favorite films.
Oh, really?
The Monsters
Inside
Inc.
Out.
Oh, wait, we're not doing Monsters Inc. today? Okay, let's say it. Okay. The Ratatouille.
No.
Shit. Wait, what is it? Oh, I don't know. The Inside Out. It's that's the one we're doing.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Isn't it one of yours? Oh.
So this came out in 2015.
Okay.
Let's talk about the context surrounding this film. I feel like we've kind of gotten sidetracked in this. I think we had a much clearer. I think like when we did the earlier ones of this, we had a much clearer structure.
Well, this is the thing because
but then we get the other ones like we have more impassioned opinions about. So we just get into the arguments about things.
I think we would always give the context, but for the earlier films, there was just a lot more to say because once you're kind of like in the grind of we're doing these movies, it's not like okay, and then they had to move a mountain and Mm-hmm. But with this,
I think this is the most. I think this has a lot to talk about with the context.
This does because what this originally was going to be, well, not originally going to be, but you remember that Project Newt with the 2 newts?
Yeah.
And there are only 2
They made
newts
it into
left?
Fantastic Beasts, right? And Where to Find Them.
No, you're thinking of Newt Scamander and his creatures.
Newt's Commander?
Newt's Commander, yeah. Basically, no. Newt was originally this Pixar film that was announced in which it would be the last 2 newts, a male and female newt, and they have to, mate to preserve the species. And you could even see an Easter egg for Newt in Toy Story 3 in Andy's room. There's like a Newt crossing sign. So they had full intentions to make this movie. It was announced, we had concept art, plot synopsis, all that, maybe even a release date. But then Blue Sky Animation came along and was like, we made Rio, which is about like
a similar premise.
Similar premise. Yeah, with birds, whatever, bluebirds, I don't know. So they were like, oh, well, I don't know if we kind of want to retool this. And Pete Docter was originally going to be the one to retool it. And he was like, well, we could do that, but I also came up with this other idea. And they were like, what is that other idea, Pete Docter? And he said, well, it would take us inside the mind of a young girl. And that's how he got Pixar's untitled film that takes you inside the mind, which they would later change the title to be Inside Out.
I prefer the original working title.
Yeah. So it was called something like that. But I still remember when I guess they announced it like probably D23 Expo. When I heard the announcement, I thought, this has the potential to be their magnum opus. This is such a good idea. I hope they like do it to its fullest potential. And then they started putting out like the trailers and stuff, and I wasn't really sure what to think about it, honestly, at first, because just sort of the way that they were playing off the characters, like, this is fear, hurrah! This is what... Like, I was like, are these just gonna be really one-note, like, annoying characters? Like, I'm not sure. I'm worried. I'm really excited, but like the closer and closer we got, the more I was thinking, okay, I'm getting confidence in this. But early on, I wasn't sure. But then, the movie itself came out, and boy, were my fears alleviated. Because everything that I was concerned about in terms of these are just going to be these one-note characters because all they could ever have is the emotion, they were much more clever about how they actually executed it. Because the emotions are more than just the stereotypical traits that they could have been, like, entirely associated with. They're like the guardians of the values that are tied to each emotion. Because, like, you have anger, who's then a stand-in for... He's all about fairness, right? So then he gets really angry. Oh, no dessert! But then he's appeased by, like, the airplane, as it were. Oh, we got an airplane. And, or like, disgust, which is hilarious. Or disgust, like, when she brings up, like, the Riley's mom and dad are thinking about accompanying her, like, to school on the first day. Oh, we'll walk you there. It's like, oh, mom and dad can't go. Joy, without missing a beat, is like, no, don't worry, I got it. Joy isn't like, oh, yeah, mom and dad, the more the merrier. Come to school with us. Like, we're not dealing with this annoying stuff where they're all, like, vying for, oh, I should be the one in charge of Riley. Pretty much all of them, with the exception of Sadness, of course, except that Joy is the one in control, and that her, like,
it's kind of like
outlook
they all,
is
like,
the best.
they're all on the same page, just the manner about what's going... Like, they all agree that the mom and dad shouldn't come with them.
Right, yeah.
But it's like, they'll approach it different ways.
Yeah, they'll
like
have different viewpoints, yeah. But it's not that annoying thing. Like, I thought we were going to just have to deal with all this stuff of anger being like, oh, we should just yell at mom and dad 24/7. And, like, you know, like, they're not stupid. Like, it feels, in many ways, like a spiritual successor to Andy's
Osmosis
Room.
Jones.
Kind of, no, not Osmosis Jones. But the way in which you have... Oh, God, Osmosis Jones. No, in that, with Toy Story and Andy's Room, you had a group of characters who all then are trying to do what's best for their owner, or in this case, the girl that they are the emotions of. And they're kind of like functioning as this collective unit, and they're all hers. But what's so interesting, I think, is that in this case, like... they're doing all what's best for Riley, but they almost kind of become a collective whole. I think it's a really interesting line when Riley is starting to break down, like, crying in class, and Fear says, they're judging us. It's us. Because it's literally, like, they are Riley.
Yeah.
So...
And they say, like, mom and dad.
Yeah.
They don't say Riley's mom and dad.
Right,
they say mom and dad.
Right. Yeah, which is really interesting. So, I like all that stuff a lot.
It's interesting you bring up Andy's Room.
Yeah.
Because I'll preface this with what I think maybe I should preface for everything.
Okay.
For this movie, this is one of those movies where it's this small group of movies that I've seen in my life where it's doing everything that it's supposed to be doing.
Uh-huh.
And yet, there's something about it that I can't put my finger on that makes me not be able to really love it.
Like The Muppets 2011.
No, seriously, yeah. Well, not that. I can point to reasons why.
But I was waiting for you to make the joke.
But my point being is, like there are movies... Essentially what I'm trying to say, movies that, like, I have no reason not to unabashedly love, but for some reason I can't put my finger on it, I can't. And this is one of those movies. So, a lot of the time, the thing I'm going to bring up, I'll either have a point that Brian and I will disagree on.
Yeah.
Or it'll be something that I'll bring up and Brian will offer a very logical, like... Or I might say something like, it needs this or doesn't have this, and you'll point to an example of that, and I'll be like, yeah, I guess, but... And, like, something, like, it just doesn't feel... Right. This will be one of those examples.
I'm going to try to get your finger on it. Because I want to see where that finger goes.
Well, you don't want to see where it goes.
Okay.
Where it spends its time.
God, anyway, all right, let's move on.
Anyway, it's funny bringing up Andy's Room, because when we were watching it,
yeah,
I would have liked you. It's this great thing when we talk about Toy Story, how it feels very much like an office.
Yeah.
And there are elements of that. In this film, there are elements of that, like, oh, you have like let's get those memories in the long term, right? Mm-hmm. Like I like that, but I would have
or how someone has dream duty at the end of the night. It's like rotating shifts.
I would have liked if that had been explored more.
Okay.
I'm not sure in what way, but like right now it feels kind of on one hand a workplace kind of thing, but also they're like.
I think I know exactly what you mean.
In Toy Story, it's not like, oh, it's kind of like a workplace. No, it is a workplace. Whereas for them, it's kind of like kind of a workplace, but also very much like this metaphysical thing that I'm trying to.
You want more of like the sociology of Riley's mind.
Yeah,
just kind of how the society works, like Pixar works.
Because that's kind of a thing I won't say issue with, but something that like that I grapple with is that I don't know how I feel about the world building. Mm. In fact, I don't know if I can call it world building. There's a lot of like the world has been built, but I don't know the details of how it functions. Okay. And I'd like to know more. Like, who are the jelly bean people? Do they like have homes? There is a cloud
town.
The
Forgetters, so I think they're called. But yeah, you're gonna get me to jump the gun here. I do have. As much as I love the film, there are two things that I can point to, and I'll get into the first one now. Okay. And this ties into exactly
two things that bother you or something.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. No, only two things I like. The rest is garbage. No. Okay. So what you're saying about like sort of the society and like who are the jelly bean people, all this stuff. So there's like two lines in the movie that really kind of stick out like a sore thumb to me. One is, and this is part of the first thing that I said. So the first line is when Joy and Sadness first come across Bing Bong, and then Joy remembers who he is, and you're Riley's old imaginary friend, and then Bing Bong realizes that she's Joy, and like, wait, you're Joy? The Joy?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, do they have like a famous reputation outside of the
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, why does no one else recognize them? Like in Dream Productions, they're like, oh my God, Joy, what are you doing here? Like, how exactly does that work? I don't really understand. Was it just Bing Bong who would be privy to that information? Do they ever... I assume they never properly met. Like,
maybe it's like...
Really? Like, I don't think Bing Bong would have ever been up in the control center, you know?
No.
Yeah.
You know what it would have been?
What?
You know what it might be like?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, if she's famous, then why is she so starstruck by, like, the unicorn person?
Yeah.
You know what it might be? The unicorn person's like an actress, but they're, like, government officials. Like, they, like, help function, like, they help operate. So she's, like...
A figurehead?
Yeah, dude, Joy's, like Obama or something. Like,
oh, God.
But you know what I mean? Like, maybe she's, like...
So the unicorn's the figurehead, but then Joy's, like...
She's part of some kind of, like, legislature. She's making decisions that affect everyone. So, like, maybe... I don't know. Maybe that's, like, that's not what it is. I'm saying maybe that's, like...
That'd be interesting. But yeah, the other line is, and this is very, very subtle. I haven't heard anyone really point this out, but it's way later in the movie when they're trying to get home, and then the train of thought like collapses and such, and then they're getting up, and Joy's like, "What's going on?" And then one of the little, as you call them, the jelly bean people or whoever they are, says, "Well, haven't you heard? Riley's running away." How does news travel? Like, how did they know? Like, it just at this point they had to then say that to Joy so that she would feel like more compelled to. I gotta instantly get back to Riley as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I understand their function. You know what they kind of remind me of? And you know what? Funny enough, they're even less developed. They're kind of like the troll people in Frozen.
In Frozen, yeah.
Yeah. No, kind of like they're kind of like just there, and they're never explained, and they're kind of like whatever the script need. Like, we need someone to tell Joy this, so we'll just have one of the jelly bean people. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're
sure.
Kind of
so
like
what I can say is, in Inside Out, these characters are funny.
That's fair. That's fair. I do
like they have the great thing with like the contacts. Those numbers are in her phone. Forget about them.
I will say, and we'll get into this. There's the film is kind of populated with like all these like visual metaphors for these different things. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, we'll get into them. But I think my favorite is probably. I want to say the dream one is one of the things I'm referring to. I would say there's a visual metaphor that's just like I quite like the dream
productions.
I quite like dream productions.
I love.
But I have like the visual metaphors for things like trying to explain how like some kind of thought process works.
Sure. Yeah.
I like the I quite like the people getting rid of the memories.
Yeah.
And how and just that's a funny scene. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of funny.
The presidents you remembered, was it George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the fat one?
And then the piano one's funny. Like Chopsticks and Heart and Soul, get rid of the rest.
That's hilarious. That's a really well conceived scene.
So the question is, what's causing certain ones to fade? Because when that suggests that we forget things because they choose which ones are gonna go, but then like they're not fading. They're just like they're perfectly good ones, but they're just choosing like she doesn't need to remember that. But they're also fading though. So what's like the point of getting rid of them if they've already faded? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, yes. Well,
Maybe
this
there's only
is the
enough
thing.
space.
They do make decisions. Well, some of them are starting to fade. Like they'll say, "Oh, these are all like kind of faded," and then they'll choose to get rid of those. Some of them like aren't necessarily, but they'll make a judgment call. Like, does he need to know all the names of these like fairy, unicorn, princess, thing, whatever?
Yeah.
And then they'll just get rid of them. So they also have a like you were talking about Joy making decisions. I guess they also have a little bit.
That part's just like a tad confusing.
Sure.
A tad. And so then it becomes, okay, so is there only like a limited number of spots? But then they show like this like endless abyss. Does that endless abyss like, is it just a mammoth-sized abyss? Mm-hmm. But like it is a finite thing? Mm-hmm. But it's also, so that's nitpicky. I don't want to get too much into that.
Yeah.
But there are, but I think that's an example of kind of like things that are put into the film for like gag purposes.
Yeah.
But could have, but like then leave me wondering, wait, well, how does that actually work?
I guess, but I feel like something like
Not
that.
so much that thing, because that's one of the
that
ones
like
I
best
like
serves
more.
as a gag, you know.
Yeah, I like that one more. We get to other visual metaphors that I get confused about.
Right.
The train of thought. The train of thought like really bothers me.
Why?
I don't understand how it's what its function is, and then there was also just something that like broke the rules of the world. I felt. Just because it needed to happen for the story. Mm-hmm. I'll mention that thing first, and I'll go back to what I don't get about the train of thought.
Okay.
The train of thought is on tracks, but until it goes over the, what is it called, like the void? What's it called?
The memory dump.
The memory dump. Once it goes over that, then the train of thought has this magical ability to create its own tracks, which is fine. I can buy into that.
Yeah.
But then when one of the islands falls, it hits the beam of the imaginary, of the imaginary track, and that causes the train to. Wouldn't they just they poofed out of nothing? Wouldn't they just go through the thing? Yeah, no, but,
I don't know.
and the reason why I on one hand that could be a nitpick, but the reason why I bring it up is because that leads to like an important plot point of them getting trapped down in the they can't get to. It seems like an unnecessary obstacle.
But allow me to counter that and say that isn't how they fall into memory dump.
Oh, that's true. But they fall off of that.
Joy has to make an active choice to try to leave sadness behind and be like, Riley,
that's
you
true.
need to be happy.
That's true. So. But I just was confused. You're right. That's true. But then they fall off to the thing, and then that's when she's like, Riley's running away. It's like, how the fuck did you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was confused about that because it felt a little contrived.
Okay.
Because if the island just fallen the other way, that wouldn't have happened. If it fell, but they could have just gone through the thing. Like I was like, okay, well you already have an imaginary thing, but now suddenly it's concrete and whatever.
Okay.
But the train of thought.
I like how they say it kind of goes all over the place, but it does have a station in imagination land because always inevitably you're going to end up imagining things because you're bored. I guess that's how I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it, I'm gonna make a crazy assertion.
All right.
And I don't think I believe it for the whole film. Okay. But you saying that kind of reminded me of something.
Oh no! What did I do? What have I done?
You're talking about like, oh, that's so cool. Like, oh, it very much is like a real train of thought. How like it goes in different directions. Isn't that so? He said it. He said the thing, but it's like physically going in different directions. Okay? It's the train of thought.
Yeah.
And how it inevitably leads you. And there's a lot of things in this movie where it's like every little bit is like working to sort some kind of like physical representation of like some figurative thing.
Yeah.
Isn't
that great?
It's like Mother.
What?
In Mother,
because everything is supporting the allegory. You're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything in Mother is like attempting to. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the movie Mother, the controversial film. This is not a spoiler. It's an allegory for the Bible. That's the whole point of it, and everything is in service of it. Sometimes to the detriment of like a logical story or character development.
A movie that makes sense in terms of its own interior.
Yeah. It only makes sense if you understand what it's an allegory.
But I don't think Inside Out ever defies its own interior logic.
No. That's not what I mean. That's not the comparison I'm making. Just this idea that like someone sat down. It's an interesting writing exercise.
Yeah.
to try to come up with, like, what would everything be an analog for? You know, like, oh, well, we have the train of thought. It's, like, literally a train of thought. We have...
These facts and opinions get mixed up. Oh, just put them together.
That's a funny thing. But I don't understand. So that's another thing I understand. So what does the train of thought deliver? Is someone driving the train of thought?
What do you mean?
What does it deliver?
No, I don't think its purpose is to actually make deliveries.
No, that's not true because earlier when she orders some extra daydreams, and the train that when she's like, oh, look at my dress. I remember this specifically. She's like talking to herself. The more we're playing the accordion, give everyone her jobs, talking with her thing, right, with her little dress. She looks out the window, sees the train come.
Train of thought right on schedule,
and it delivers something.
Oh, yeah.
And it's extra daydreams. So it makes deliveries.
Okay. But I think its primary purpose, or at least it's just how I interpret it, is just that wherever it arrives is where Riley's, like, mind is going to shift to in terms of focus at the point. That's just sort of how I took it. I don't know. Like, you think it's just there to make delivery? I don't know.
No, I don't know what I think. It's making me ask these questions. I shouldn't be asking about the train of thought when looking at this movie. Like, I don't ask about the East. I don't talk about... No, but the fact... No, but not like I shouldn't. Yeah. It's like, these questions shouldn't... Like, I shouldn't be focusing on this. Like, in terms of, like, it shouldn't be even a thing that I would talk about.
Right.
But it is. It's like, that's what I'm... Right. Like, when I watch Finding Nemo, I don't think about, like, well, how does the East Australian current work? Like, I never think about it. It doesn't... Like,
I've never really thought too much about the train of thought. Myself. But
you have
that's
no train
interesting.
of thought.
What'd you say?
You have no train of thought.
What? Yeah, okay.
But going off to that point, a lot of the movie feels very, again, like I said, almost like a writing exercise. Like what can we do?
I'm going to use the way that you described it to me once. It seems like everything is just so aware of, like, oh, aren't you going to like this? That's what you said. And I was like, what's the problem with that? They made something that's going to be really good, and they know that it's good, and it is good?
No, but it's kind of like it thinks I think the movie thinks it's a little more clever than it is. Like, it's not that ridiculous. Like, the train of thought is not a ingenious idea.
But it doesn't, like, dwell on any of these ideas. They're just there, and
the whole film is populated with them. The whole film is populated. It's like not one individual one is dwelled upon, but the whole film is populated with these.
But something like the train of thought, I think, works because it's very accessible, and you need to get it across quickly. Like, to quote Joy, I don't want to get too technical. So they don't want to make, like, these crazy metaphors that you really then have to think about, oh, I guess this is sort of like how thought processes work in terms of they develop. It's the train of thought. Like, you got it. Boom. Like, I know then you're going to keep then thinking about how does it actually work, but I think the train of thought, like, if you just set it up as that's a really quick way to just get across, this is what we want to say, this is what we're representing, we're not patting ourselves on the back too much, like, isn't this, like, they don't make it into a punchline, it's just, this is the train of thought. And here are these memories that are contained in these little globes, and you could see, like, the images on them. It's not like, whoa, isn't this, like, aren't these amazing ideas? It's just, these are really accessible, succinct ways of externalizing what we want to talk about. I think. I don't know. I don't feel like the movie is too self-congratulatory in that sense. But that's something you would say?
I would say, not necessarily just talking about the train of thought, but just the whole concept. And I don't mean the concept. But just the whole film kind of feels like it.
But it's a kind of concept that has to be sort of self-referential to our world in order to work and capitalize on its comedy and also its commentary.
I don't even mean just like stuff like the train of thought. I just mean like the film as a whole thinks idea is this idea of anthropomorphizing these elements. That there's some kind of physicalized realm or world that's a representation for, like, our psyche. It thinks it's, like, a really, like, isn't this extremely fascinating?
But can you point to any specific, like, aspect or moment that you feel like is like overconfident in itself or
it's just kind of the way it again, I can't point to anything specific. I'd have to be watching the movie and then be like, there it is, that. You know, sometimes it's as subtle as just, like, a music choice. Or, like, because there was...
There's, like, the sense of wonder is too overwhelming? Oh, you think it should be less wondrous? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
I don't really know. I don't think this answers this, but something I just thought of.
Okay.
There was a part, when I brought up the music, there was a part in the movie, the music, I love Michael Giacchino.
Oh, yeah.
I think the music in here is great. in a vacuum. Sometimes I don't like where it is in the movie.
Okay.
Like it doesn't. Not that it doesn't fit, but it's giving off a different feel for a scene that I wish it wasn't giving off. Because that's the whole point of a score.
So
is oftentimes it's meant to somehow support an emotion of a scene.
You have an example?
There was that was like Demonstrate from Monsters University.
Demonstrate, yeah.
The scene when going back to the idea of The Office, right?
Right.
We remember we were talking again. You can't copy, but something in that vein. Remember like Monsters Inc., which is also again like kind of like an office like or
Pete Docter's original film.
And like a like kind of like a you know what I mean, like a
workplace, yeah.
And like the music kind of like had like that like jazzy 60s.
Yeah.
No, but like when they're on the scare floor for the first time.
Oh yeah.
When she's doing the music feels very innocuous. The first time that they're like we get to really see like how like the control center works, and I'm like, let's get these memories in the long term. The music is very just like strings oriented, very like it has
I can
90s
think
movie
of that.
syndrome.
I can think of that specific like score and how it sounds right now in my head. I don't know.
I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm not asking its ability to be recalled.
No.
I wish it felt more
mean,
like very like I don't have the vocabulary to talk about movie scores, but
but what you're saying, it feels innocuous. I feel like it's capturing that because this is when she's about to go to sleep. I'm getting that sort of sense of like the winding down and like the magic. How, like,
but I want to see it for them that it's not. I figured out what I was trying to say before. Remember, I was saying it feels like it's not enough of a workplace. That it's something else, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Okay.
It very much feels like, isn't this cute and heartwarming? Is what I'm trying to say. It's like they're aware this is like cute and heartwarming. No, I want to see like this is like their job, and the music is reflecting this like. And like, oh, it's winding up. No, like I want it's like, all right, good, we got, and like I want the music to reflect that.
Okay.
And like feel more like dutiful or like I don't know like the genre. Like again, I don't have the vocabulary or to be able to articulate what I'm trying to say.
But can I ask you why? Other than just Toy Story did it and Monsters Inc. did.
No. Well, because Toy Story doesn't really do it. Toy Story actually.
Well, Monsters Inc. did it more.
Is I just use that as an example of like a style, perhaps.
Okay.
The reason why is because it makes it feel very. That's an example of how it's like
reveling in itself.
Reveling in itself.
Okay.
Where it's like, oh, look, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see it very much like I want to feel like I want to get a sense of like. This is also tangential, but I don't like in movie. The Incredibles does it better, but it bothers me. Not bothers me enough to care because Incredibles is great, but. Forced, because Incredibles is not forced. I think in here it's forced, because I have to look at the script and the transcript. Forced use of this trope. What could happen? The way they led into the, she's 11. What could happen? I forget what it was. The line right before that, there was no segue from her being like, she's 11. What could happen? Like, you're just inviting something to happen by saying that out loud. And it's just like a setup for it's a good cold open setup for in movies where someone says, what could happen? Cut to that thing, to the thing that you didn't think would happen. You know.
You're thinking of their superheroes. We're superheroes. What could happen?
That makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Because I forget what Helen says, but there's a little more of a segue. I think that trope just bothers me.
Okay.
Because it felt a little forced, and then it's like we're moving.
I think the reason that it's reason that it's heartwarming and works here is that they don't have any frame of reference, and considering the fact that they're not adults themselves, so they have a certain like level of naivete. That's why I think it's charming and it works. But to get back to what you were saying about sort of reveling in itself and that they're not like, all right, okay, end of the shift, here we go. Like, I think that goes back to what I was saying about how it's not procedural for them. They literally, like, are Riley. So they love her. It's not just clocking in, clocking out. But so I feel like that fits.
No, you're right. And therefore I think that they shouldn't have made it as much of an office as it was.
Okay.
Like it was, like I'd rather you make it completely like they are just her.
Okay.
Existing. But they also have like that's the thing. That's the thing. When I heard about this film, right? I hear it pitched. It's going into the mind of a young girl and like exploring like this like these abstract concepts. I was like, I said about the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is like gonna be their like magnum opus.
Their swans.
This is gonna be so cool. They're gonna push the boundary of what they've done because at this point they've done very straightforward like linear.
Storytelling.
Kind of, I don't mean linear as in like non-linear chronological. I just mean like very straightforward. I wouldn't say any of the other Pixar movies are like not straightforward. They're very easy to. They're very accessible.
Yeah.
Right? We can agree on that. I was like, okay, this one's going to be like really heady, right? And like really get to those like those old like weird experimental like cartoons from the 60s. I forget the name of the group, but it was like the United Artists Animators, I think. They like left Disney and started making like really weird abstract like animation. Like look really cool. I'm like, oh my god, that's going to be this. That's going to be so cool. And I think among other things, my big problem with the movie is that they tried to take this idea, and I hate it can work, you know, but not necessarily on its own. This idea of let's combine these two things that normally you wouldn't think would go together or shouldn't work, and then people will go, because they're combined, I've never seen that before, that's so cool. It doesn't always work. And I think here they we're going to try to do these abstract concepts, but they have an obligation, both with their track record and also I think just their aesthetic, like what kind of movies they want to make. Sure. Make an accessible animated film that isn't too complex.
Okay.
And so what they did was they wanted to do this abstract thing, but they made this world, this what should have been, I think, a really cool abstract metaphysical world, extremely concrete. To the point where they have to obey the rules of time and space. So they're like, oh shit, we have to like walk this distance to get back. Like they made it too physical. They made it too much like an actual place, and that's a good micro example of it. Like you're saying, like, oh, but they are her, so like it wouldn't be procedural. But then I wish they hadn't had all of the stuff making it more like an office, where it's like a control center, almost like one of those like an airport. It's kind of, actually very much is like a FAA like tower, like airports, right? Is that kind of like the? I think it was like designed around that.
Yeah,
there's that.
There's influence of like the Apple Store. And
yeah. Oh, the stuff with the swiping on like the orbs. I think they made a joke. It was like brought to you by Apple. Yeah. Apple Technologies, right? So I think that's a major problem I have with it is that, you know, if they're gonna do this, I wish they really like, you know, took a big risk. And like, you know, no, we're really gonna make this. We're really gonna push both what people would expect from us, A, B, this film, and C, what we expect from ourselves, like what we think what we're comfortable doing, and really get there. And I think they kind of got there to the nth degree. And the whole movie shouldn't have been like this, but like the
abstract thought,
room, which I think if the whole movie had been like that would not be good. I'm not advocating for it being like all these weird shapes, but that was such an interesting, weird. Like I feel like that. I don't know how these movies are usually made, but from my understanding, like you have the director, but then like certain sequences like kind of have like a lead person and like right, so kind of like mini directors, kind of.
Yeah, like supervising director.
Yeah, so I feel like that sequence, someone was like, I want to make that movie. The movie me as Peter described. Like someone else had the same notion and was like, well, this scene we can do that. Now I don't understand that was probably written in the script, but being like, we're gonna go balls to the walls with this one. So that's one of my main problems, and I'll get to other things later. But I think that's a big thing for me.
So then that's very interesting, because I think what you've, based on sort of what you've said about this movie in the past, you were sort of then looking for like not quite this, but I'll name drop it, a Fantasia of sorts, in the sense that we're really like kind of pushing the realm, what the medium of animation can accomplish.
Would have a story still, but
like a very evocative and like sort of like illustrious, like sort of. So what's really interesting about that is I feel like what they did here with Inside Out in many ways is a celebration of animation in a lot of different forms, and I'll explain what I mean. Because you have sort of the outside world, which is like fairly realistic animation. We talk about how with the humans they usually don't try to go for like a completely photorealistic look, but this time like compared to something like The Incredibles, they're not like super stylized. It's fairly like played straight and grounded.
It's probably as close as we've.
Yeah. But then you have that going on, but then you also, of course, then in the mind, you have just sort of the way the emotions are animated, especially a lot of the slapstick with fear, and how he's like flying around, running do, you know. There's really, more so than any other Pixar movie up to this point that I can recall, a sense of like harkening back to classic sort of 2D cartoon.
Slapstick,
slapstick.
Mostly with fear, I think.
Mostly with fear, but you do get a lot of this across, and like sort of the very like high-paced, very frenetic sort of tone of something like classically cartoonist. So we have that, and then of course also abstract thought, which is such a great showcase for like just like you couldn't even conceive of that scene in live action.
Which
So
scene?
that's a
The abstract thought scene?
Yeah, just the way that we're non-figurative, and then they have to like fall.
Is it like based off of something, or do they just come like? Is that like based off like 4 steps of something, like how thought works, and then they physicalized it?
Oh, I mean, it could be, or it's just something that they made up that Sadness reads in the manuals. Which let me
That
also
scene
then,
is written. May I interrupt?
Go ahead.
That scene, it feels like it was made in a different. Like it was almost like it was like reshoots.
They like outsourced it.
Yeah, because like the way it's written, like has a self-awareness of like how ridiculous it is.
Lacking depth.
No. What is Sadness? She goes. She lists some really long step.
Yeah.
That even me as like an adult man don't understand what like that's supposed to mean,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. Like so she's like, it's the 3rd step, defragmentation. Like that wasn't the fragmentation one. It was like one of the other ones. It was a really long one. Mm-hmm. And she's saying it just like the other ones.
Right.
And it was so funny.
Yeah.
None of the rest of the movie is like this. Like, there's no scene like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's the most. I think it's the most interesting set piece that they have.
It is a very interesting set piece.
Because the whole film is a little episodic.
Sure.
To a fault for me.
Okay.
You know, we'll get more into.
It feels a little Finding Nemo-ish in terms of how episodic
yeah.
it is. Although I think a little less pronounced than Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
But while we're on the whole notion of Sadness referring to the mind manuals, I do think it's really clever how they managed to work that in, because when they first establish it, it just sort of seems like, okay, well then Joy wants to distract Sadness and keep her at bay and not have her controlling Riley, so she's just gonna give her like a dummy task. And it was fun when we were watching it with some friends. Our friend Emma called it Chekhov's mind manual, and it is a very smart Chekhov's gun that they utilize. Because I would have never thought that they would bring it back in such a way. So I just wanted to praise that, because I thought it was really like that. That's like 6th draft. Like you find something like that could really then work and function on such a level that you would never expect it to be even brought back, because you think it served its purpose already. So yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, but yeah, no, I think that's a great thing. Though I not to beat a dead horse.
Okay.
Who am I kidding? I love to beat dead horses. But anyway, I mean in a figurative sense, Brian, not literally.
What?
Huh?
What?
Anyway, like a beat a dead horse.
I know.
I like to abuse animals. What I'm trying to say is, not to beat a dead horse, but yeah, going off the manual thing, that's just a great find. But at the end of the day, I find myself not liking that, because it makes it very concrete. Mm-hmm. It makes it very. It's like a physical world with a manual that can be explained, and you just have to understand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this world, sure. I think you're right. It's a perfectly placed kind of device to help us like give us like a way to navigate the world. Mm-hmm. Though I just wish that wasn't the story. I wish it wasn't about like some kind of physical road trip that they have to take.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that serves. Do you know what I mean?
The
mind
manual?
No, like this kind of idea of like a road trip movie.
Well,
Like this journey, this physicalized journey. Because like in Finding Nemo, like what does the physical journey represent? In my Finding Nemo, it's how far Marlin's willing to go to save his son. Mm-hmm. You know, like or like in very much so like facing his fears, going out into the world. With this, it's literally just like it's far away. We need to get back to Riley. We just gotta walk. Whereas with Marlin, it's like he needs to go out into the thing he's afraid of. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this, it's just an obstacle that they have to like. Here you were at the place you need to be, and you were transplanted. Now you just need to get back there, and that's kind of the main objective.
Sure, but isn't it still like highly integral for Joy to get back to headquarters, because he feels like...
No, but I mean, but what does it mean to have to do that?
What does it mean to have to do
like
that?
with Marlin, like I said, with Marlin, like it's about what he's willing to do for Nemo.
You're talking about what it's illustrating.
Yeah. Okay. And with this, it very much is just like, I don't think that's like a stretch. It really is just like for a plot to happen. Because basically the plot, I don't like plot. I don't say I don't like them. I'm just saying in this, I don't know if it works. A plot setup where the main conflict is more like characters have been like we've just been transplanted now.
I think I know what you're saying, but kind of going to what you said about how you don't like that they're taking these abstract things and making them very concrete. You the way you put it was, this is sort of in order for there to be a plot that happens, and I think there like the looseness to it is kind of catering to what you want, and that it's allowing us to just sort of explore and make it more about this is this story, this journey is about what Joy is going to learn in regards to sadness, and it's not as much about okay, then we need to get here, and that is our objective, and this is exactly where we need to go, because the mind is always shifting. They're changing things around in Imagination Land. The islands of personality are collapsing. So it's not. It's like it sort of is giving you the bare minimum of a solid plot, just so they could sort of hang their hat on that. But I think it's more in service of what you want, if that makes sense.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. I think what it comes down to probably is two things.
Okay.
One, that implies it's kind of like teetering in the middle, and I wish it just did one or the other.
Right.
Like if it was going to be concrete, give me every detail about this world, how it works, and everything. But or go in the other direction where it's more kind of like abstract, you know. And the thing I say about that's where you need to have a plot. That goes into the second thing, you know, like. You're right, like, yeah, that's what you do need to do in order for it to have a plot. Which is why I go back to the thing that we've talked about, whereas I think this was an idea that would have served better in the short form. Like a 15, 20 minute short or something. Maybe even shorter.
Right.
Little did I know that there was a similar short that Disney made. Disney feature, well, not feature animation, but like the, not Pixar, the Disney animation.
Inner Workings, before Moana.
That I had never seen, because we were talking about this.
And I was like, wait a minute, Peter. Everything you're saying, you need to watch this, because it's sort of it's silent, and it's sort of an examination, and it's also like kind of like what you were talking about visually, like you wanted to see sort of like at the same time, like here's what's going on in the outside world, here's what's in the inner world.
Because
and I was like, oh, here's everything you want.
I didn't even know it existed. And I watched it. You know, I wouldn't say that that's better, but that
it is a really great and underrated short. If you haven't seen it, please.
What's it called?
Watch
Inner Workings.
Inner Workings.
I think the reason why I would almost prefer something like that is that it's more. It uses the form more. It's not as, I won't say it's not as accessible, because it's very clear cut what's going on.
Yes.
But in the sense of it's more like what would be the word, like not idiosyncratic, but more like maybe stylized is the word.
Stylized.
Whereas this is almost trying to be like in Finding Nemo, there's nothing fantastical about it. It's just kind of capturing. It's almost as if this were a real world. We're gonna just capture what's going on in this very concrete world.
How I would describe Inner Workings is, I was saying before about how we do have some classic cartoon sensibility in Inside Out. Inner Workings is very much just like classic cartoon, like balls to the walls, goofy.
In fact, I think
which once we get to like the emotional pinnacle of the short, it's really striking that the pace, which was very, very like slapdash, slows down, and we just sit in the moment and like sort of the rut that this character is in, going into the office every day, just sort of like living safely but never getting any real satisfaction out of his life. So it's sort of utilized in that sense, whereas I would argue that the default of Inside Out, whereas the default of Inner Workings is this like sort of cartoon world, the default of Inside Out is a little bit indie. I think it's going for a very sort of different tone in terms of how
I would say indie, but maybe more mature is what you're trying to say.
Like not necessarily indie, but like a smaller film, I would say. In terms of that, it's this family, and they moved, and she's adjusting their life. Which is another thing I do really like about the juxtaposition that's going on here, because at the end of the day, the climax is just, well, she's running away from home. And it's not like, and the inner world is then all about reflecting, okay, this is a very big deal on the inside in terms of what like it means, but it's not like crazy, like, oh, she's been like kidnapped or something. It's this very human, personal, grounded thing, but we're taking like the medium of animation and the realm of what we could do with this idea in order to illustrate how important it is. And I feel like why this movie is such a success, I think, is that everything in regards to what Riley does totally makes sense on its own. You can, and someone did, cut out all the scenes with the emotions, and it would completely make sense, every choice that Riley makes. I feel like almost they figured out everything that would happen with Riley and her family, and then they backtracked and made it so that everything with the emotions and like, oh, sadness then touches me, or how they'll make it like sadness takes what was once a happy memory and then it's tinged with sadness, like she's thinking back on a happy memory she shared with her father, but then when the father walks out because he has to deal with something business related, suddenly that becomes a sad memory. Like, yes, we deal with how the inner machinations of the Inside Out world make that so. But it totally makes sense on its own because it's explaining how we feel in our lives.
Yeah.
There's no stupid scene when Riley is like being tugged in all these different directions by the emotions, and someone else is like, "Duh? What's going on?" Which they do that in Inner Workings, but it totally works because it's like cartoony and that's funny. But here it would be so stupid if they were just like pulling her all these different ways. I know there's that one scene when she's like sort of sliding down the banister and then she stops for a second.
Yeah, that was the one I was gonna say.
But like I don't think like when I watch that scene, it doesn't feel unreasonable. It feels like she wants to then be happy and then do this and then sort of then is brought down and then decides, all right, I'm going to shove that aside and then do it anyway. She's not constantly going back and forth. She doesn't go like one step like, woo, woo.
Yeah.
It's not stupid like that.
It's not like goofy,
know?
yeah.
It's
not.
not.
People are like looking like
what's wrong with that girl?
Like with Ratatouille with like Linguini and stuff.
Seeing rats.
It's interesting to bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, them controlling Linguini.
I think.
Oh yeah, that's a very well taken comparison actually. Yeah.
I think like you brought this idea of like we get to like I want to see more interaction with these two worlds because right now it's teetering again the similar thing. I either want it to be super responsive to one another, like one is affecting the other in this like very symbiotic way, or they're just completely distinct and you just make one of those movies.
Okay.
And the reason being is I don't think it's fair. I think you can make the argument. In fact, you're going to make the argument that but they do affect each other because what happens in the subconscious is affecting Riley's emotions. I would disagree in the sense that the main stuff in the subconscious, forget anger and disgust and fear, because they're more doing whatever. The main part of the subconscious is joy.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing that joy is doing is affecting what's going on with Riley.
Okay.
In an active way. It's more of like in her absence. But nothing that joy is doing is affecting Riley. And in fact, nothing that Riley is doing is affecting joy. We have the stuff with the island. We have the stuff with the islands.
Yeah.
But that's not something. That's more the fear, anger, and disgust who are making dumb decisions, and like the two worlds aren't really
playing off
of each other. And if you're gonna do something like this, which is why I like in Inner Workings how we can. I always say the Inner Workings is playing off of each other, but in the sense that we can see how these two worlds
connect.
Okay. Whereas in this they feel
This is
very
an interesting point.
and in this they feel very distant. How long is that? Is like the person who cut all the Riley bits together? Like how long is that video? Like
that's a good question. I feel like it's not any longer than 20 minutes. I feel like it's not.
That's a huge shame. That's a huge shame because I found myself wanting. The world is so complex, and yet not complex enough. Like I want to know more information. Like as we were talking about before, but it's kind of like. It's the level of complexity that it has demands that we spend more time with the subconscious. It's an hour and a half movie and we only spend 20 minutes with the girl that we're supposed to like she like I want to know more about. I wish it was more evenly.
But the thing is, in terms of like the fan edit, that's as much as we spend. Literally, we're in the outside world. And
that's what I mean.
And but like that doesn't include stuff like when they're in like her mind and they're looking at a memory or they're looking at it in like a globe or they're looking on the screen or they're talking about.
But that can't add up more than like 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm saying so. It's 25 minutes we're talking. Still, I think that's a criminal disservice to Riley because she could have been such a more interesting character. Because every time I was in the real world, I wanted to spend more time there, and just see Riley interact with everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's this problem this movie has where it wants to be like you said, this indie movie where we're exploring this young girl's thing, but also needs to be this accessible, quirky. Like here's this really cartoony lens we're gonna use to show. This thing, because it is it's not cartoony, but like this like super stylized like concept, like these anthropomorphized emotions, right? Why couldn't it just be about Riley? Why couldn't it just be the indie movie that you're talking about? You know? And the answer is, oh, well, because they recontextualize it. I mean, great, but...
You're really undervaluing that, because this allows it to be different than any other smaller movie that would just focus on the it heightens those emotions, and yes, it does recontextualize them in an interesting way that forces you to see it differently than you would have ever.
But how does it recontextualize it? What is being recontextualized?
Well, I guess I'll give you a specific example. Something that I think is utterly brilliant how they execute it in here is this whole idea, and how it ties into... We're talking about connections between the outside world and the inside world, and how they're affecting each other. The scene in which we're spending the first night at the new home, right? And if you allow me for a second to touch on the editing, I think there's something really smart about the way that it's sort of cut together, in the sense that I think it heightens the connection between the two worlds, because you'll have stuff like really, really well-timed cuts that don't dwell too long at all. They dwell just like a little second, and then that's all you need. Something like Disgust being like, oh yeah, it can't get any worse. Like, we could be on the floor in a bag, and then it'll cut to Riley like sort of just sitting there uncomfortable. Or the part when the mom comes in, and then Anger's like, oh, the bad news train keeps on chugging, toot toot, and then the mom says something else about like some more bad news. Very quick cut to Anger, toot toot toot, back to the outside world. Hilarious. There are a lot of moments like that I think are really, really smart in terms of the editing, but sort of like my bigger point here is that what we get is this scene in which she says that it's a really tough time, that we're making these adjustments, and I think and through all of this, you've stayed our happy girl, and that's really sort of helping us along, and that's really good. And everyone just sort of freezes. Like Anger was all ready to blow up, so a death glare to the mom. They're like, oh, and then Joy turns around, and is like, whoa, and this sort of affirms her flaw in the sense that they need to project this facade of happiness because they think that that's the right thing to do, and just if you didn't have the emotions in that scene, that adds a whole new layer that really talks about something that's very real, which is suppressing our emotions so that we feel like we make other people feel better, and we think we're doing the right thing, even though we're not being honest with ourselves.
But
yeah,
but nothing you said in there necessitated that we see the anthropomorphized emotions. We can get that same scene without seeing the emotions and still get a sense of, so now she feels conflicted between how she feels and through interpretation of character faces and acting, which is not as easy to do. But oh no, God forbid.
I think that's ridiculous to say that's easier to do it that way, and I think you're not getting the same thing across.
But what do we get? But tell me how you couldn't.
It's way easier if you don't have to deal with two parallel storylines. But anyway.
But I'm talking about in that scene. Getting that across is easy, not just the whole film is easy.
Okay.
In what way is it not possible to get what you're saying?
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Or how does it make it better?
How it makes it better,
as opposed to being able to, as an audience member, put the pieces.
We get a heightened sense of how it's not just Riley choosing to say what makes the most sense in the moment. We're seeing firsthand how this sort of problematic response is rewarded, and how Joy thinks it's the right thing to do, and everyone then sort of just agrees, and they're like, oh yeah, Team Happy, and it shows us in a way that we wouldn't get across otherwise firsthand how, in order to compensate for a troubling situation, we're going to shove our real feelings down by letting us see the actual feelings themselves. Or even through a scene what comes right after when she's having a nightmare about movie, and then she's like, all right, I don't want to deal with it. I know I'm not supposed to do this, and she takes the memory of them just skating around, and then it's this great scene in which then Joy is then mirroring all of then Riley's movements across. It's showing how she's trying to then rely on the happiness of the past and not letting herself adjust to what's current. And yes, of course you could get that theme across in a movie that didn't have the inside world, or you could have it said in a conversation. But it's being presented in this heightened, really creative way that I think lets us feel it more and shows it visually and really utilizes the medium of film a lot more.
But see, I would disagree, because that's kind of like the equivalent of a novel. where we can, when we're reading a novel, I can read all the characters' thoughts, right? In a film, like what I'm trying to say is if you just do it with Riley, it's more sophisticated. Like it's more there's a level of sophistication to that because you have to plant all of the different mechanisms and seeds in order for the audience to naturally understand that. Whereas that's just clearly like this is exactly what's happening.
I strongly disagree that it's
like the equivalent of like a character saying exactly how they feel in a scene.
I strongly disagree that that's what's going on here. Because if it was them saying it, because they're not saying anything. They're communicating it entirely through the fact that we're seeing this visual metaphor. It's not, the emotions aren't there just to spell out. They don't have the emotions say, wow, I guess mom responds to when we act happy. But we shouldn't really be acting happy, should we? No, we should, guys. That's the right thing to do.
But on that level, they do it well. But there's still this element of we're still getting Riley's emotions telegraphed to me because of how they're functioning.
Right, but they're like
I would rather just see Riley exist.
I disagree with the use of the word telegraph, though, because I don't think its purpose is just to make it more obvious. I think it's to more intricately display the feud of emotions that's going on. It's not just showing, oh yeah, well, she's like being happy now. You see, happy is in here. Being
also,
happy.
You bring up this point that we were talking about last night that I don't think is a nitpick. I think this is a perfectly reasonable question.
Okay.
I'm not even saying it's an issue. It just raises a question. But like the question has been, no one's been able to answer this question in a satisfying way.
Okay.
How does this work? Does she have free will? Let me ask as much as this.
Ask the whole question, but this is something we should definitely talk about.
Does she have free will, or are the emotions controlling her? And if so, how do they control her? Just by nature of being in the control room, or do they have to actually touch and like input a command into that keyboard? Because you talk about this idea of suppressing this emotion. Well, if they haven't put any emotions in, there's no emotion to suppress. Right? And you're saying, oh, well, sadness is there on the person's side. Well, if sadness being in the room, who gives a shit? If it only is what happens in the... Like, if I'm in a nuclear, like, missile silo place, and I want to shoot off the missile, me being there wanting to shoot off the missile isn't going to shoot off the missile. I have to go over and do it. Right. So sadness is being in the room. This great visual metaphor of, like, pushing sadness off to the side. Well, by the rules of the world as I understand them, and this again goes back to the thing of like I don't think the rules are defined well enough because it raises these questions. If according to the rules of the world, sadness could be right there at touching the screen. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter how close or far back she is. I understand the visual metaphor.
Yeah.
But the rules of the world are contradicting what you're trying to say. So in that scene, you're saying like, oh, it's them trying to like push the feelings down. Well, what feelings are there other than the ones that they've decided to put? So there's nothing to push down.
So this was something that I was really thinking about going into this movie. To what is Riley just going to be like sort of this giant robot that they're controlling and she has no free will of her own? So what actually I had an exciting opportunity before the movie came out, which there was they were showing the first 5 minutes of the film at the Apple Store in Soho, and Pete Docter was there himself with Jonas Rivera.
Okay.
And they were sort of just talking about, and there was also a Q&A. So when I went there, I asked about, so is there a difference between the means by which the emotions impact Riley and how Riley is able to influence the emotions? Or is it sort of just like a one-way street? Like how does that work? And they talked about how they didn't want it to just be that Riley is like this big robot they're controlling. And I think you could see in the movie that there are signs of this that show that Riley is her own being. And I'm going to point to some of them now. They have one key part early on, after then they've moved there, and then they go to try to then get pizza, and then it's, of course, the disgusting pizza with the broccoli on it. And then they're leaving. Oh, what kind of restaurant only shows one type of pizza? No one's at the control center at that moment. But then Riley and her mom are kind of like laughing between each other. And then Joy's just kind of like sitting off to the side, looks over, sees that Family Island is lit up. And she's like, oh, family's running. So she's not controlling it, making like, Riley has to be happy now all the time. Like, Riley just chose in that moment. And then, of course, the most significant one is anger implanting the idea to run away. He has like this little light bulb. He puts it into the control center, and then it fully goes like locks in, and then Anger goes, "She took it." And then later the console goes dark, and they're not able to do anything until Sadness, of course, is the one who's able to get the idea out, because he's the only one who is able to actually address how Riley was feeling. So there is definitely a separation between the emotions and who Riley is just on her own. And I think it's important, and again goes back to this idea of what I was saying, that everything in the movie makes sense on its own. The emotions never influence the story in such a way that it's nonsensical why Riley would be behaving in this way, and if you cut out their scenes, it wouldn't make any sense, which I think is a really smart choice, because it's far less alienating. But yeah, like, I think that just speaks to how they're able to interweave the two worlds so well, through all these great understated cuts, and through all of this sort of then clever work that defines them both as their own entities, but that are in a conversation with each other, but not a be-all, end-all, like, agreement. You know, that's what I would say.
I agree with you to a point.
Okay.
You've managed to effectively explain the difference. So would Pete Docter say that there's some kind of like other force, like Riley is able to like they're almost like suggestions almost.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, where's that character? Where's Riley in her own head? You know what I mean? Riley does it. You're talking about this great back and forth between this world. No, we never really see it. You're having characters who are basically all of their choices are more suggestive choices. Imagine if Luke's decision to blow up the Death Star was a suggestive choice. Like, that creates for weaker character choices. If the things that they're doing are more...
But Luke's decision to blow up the Death Star is a suggestive choice. He has a voice in his head that tells him...
No. Him being...
It's just a funny example.
No, him being a suggestion. Him being the one to suggest, not things suggesting to him.
Right.
In this case, Riley is Luke.
But Obi-Wan was a voice in his head who told him to do it.
But
it's just funny that's the example you chose.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll use this as actually a point I wasn't going
Okay, alright, go ahead!
In that analogy,
yes,
Riley is Luke, and the emotions are Obi-Wan.
Okay.
Who makes the decision, though? Who?
Good question.
No.
Who well, do you want me to objectively answer, or what?
Are you saying Obi-Wan controls Luke?
No!
So who blows up this
not.
Who blows up this star?
Luke ultimately is the one who chooses. And by the same hand,
exactly,
Riley is the one
exactly.
who
So why isn't the movie just about her?
Okay.
And why isn't the movie, or at least why isn't she a more active force or character in the story? I was watching Grace Randolph's review of this film. And
we love Grace, by the way.
We love Grace Randolph from Beyond the Trailer. Whether we agree with her or disagree with her, she's the most like entertaining internet personality.
Passionate, like always has like videos up all the time, very informative. Yeah.
And because we were talking about how Brian was telling me how she didn't like this film. Not just didn't like it, but like was very outspoken about how much she didn't like it. And I don't think I'd ever seen the review. Or if I had, it'd been forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so before this, I was like, I'm curious to see what she said. Because I don't see a lot of...
Maybe you could rip off some of her material so you don't have to come up with your own criticisms.
Well, no.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Because to be frank, I never really heard of anyone else really not
having a negative perspective.
Or at least someone like high profile. I wouldn't say high profile, but like I've met people.
Yeah.
But I mean someone who like does this for a living, like not really particularly like it. So I was curious to see what her thoughts were. And she had a bunch of points. Some of them I agree with, some of them I didn't.
Yeah.
I agree with most of her negative points. So there were some positives that I said, no, I think those are negative. So most of the she said Joy's a great character, and I disagree, but we'll get there later.
Oh boy, we have to get there.
But she brought up a fascinating point that she discovered this and then said, no, I don't think this, but maybe if you did this, I'm going to elaborate on her point.
Okay.
So some kind of mutation. She said when she watched it, she felt like there was like an emotion missing. Oh, side thing. Before I continue with this, she also agreed that disgust was not like like a primary emotion.
Okay.
That like out of the five you have joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. Like disgust.
She is the least pertinent to the film. They give her that nice little moment at the end when she takes advantage of anger in order to get Joy and Sadness back into headquarters.
But
I can understand that criticism. I like the discussed character enough, and they don't.
Oh, I like her. I quite like her.
Yeah, they don't push her like too much to the point that I'm like, why is she here? So I'm like, but I can understand.
Maybe there's not enough. Again, I can't think of any other emotions. So I guess. Yeah. But anyway, back to my point. Yeah. That she was watching and going like, there's 5 of these emotions. Like one of them, like I feel like one's missing. Like I don't know which one it is. And then she researched online and found out that they originally were going to have logic as a character, which doesn't make sense because logic's not really an emotion.
Right.
But some kind of like logic character. And she and Grace brought up the point that I never thought of this.
Okay.
I never even had an inkling like this. What I was just bringing up about Riley should have been a more active force in the story, because most of the time it's more just like, well, if she's not actually being controlled by... Again, it's this teetering. It's either... Basically, Pete Docter, the answer he gave you, that translates as, it's really both, because choosing one we'd lose some benefits of the other, so we're just gonna kind of do both and not have the audience think about it too much. Do you know what I mean? Like it's either that they're not permanent at all, or she's a robot, right? But in this movie, it's more down the middle. That's because they want to do both, but like they don't want to sacrifice one or the other, so they do both. She said that you should have had some kind of, whether it be like literally Riley in her own head, or some kind of representation of like something that is that force that overrides the emotions. Be a character. And that's the thing, because basically you have 2 emotions in conflict with each other. Like, the movie, I understand, the theme, the sadness, it's okay to be sad, I get it. But in terms of a more interesting narrative, I think you would have gotten more interesting conflict between some kind of representation of Riley and joy, or all of the emotions. And then furthermore, whether or not that's better, the conflict would be interesting. Again, we lose the theme. Oh no. But I think having Riley as a more active force would have done this movie wonders.
This is where I take issue, because I feel like then we're in danger of the film just utterly collapsing in on itself. Because
I think it collapses on itself. As
okay, but let me explain, because you have then the 2 warring worlds of Riley, like real Riley, and then the emotions. And then you're going to add this third layer of, here's Riley herself within the world.
But I would say that it wouldn't be a third thing. It would be Riley.
Okay.
It wouldn't be this third other party. It would be Riley. It would be Riley's soul or
but it is,
I don't know, like what.
Nonetheless, it's still like a third mechanism. Would it be like it's literally directly everything that she does is a mirror image to Riley?
I don't know. I mean, I would have to sit down for 3 or 4 years
I feel like
they didn't make the movie. But
what you're saying in terms of having this sort of like conflicting ideology between the 2 of them, you're like creating just a mini version of what we already have, and like further than like entrenching us into, okay, then I feel like then we're just in this never-ending cycle of we have to get all the more specific, and we have to then have Riley then in here with the emotions, and then but then what are the emotions then drawing from? Are the emotions just always their own emotions? So then do we have to like go in deeper and deeper and deeper? Well, I feel like then we're just like then in danger of consolidating ourselves far too much. And what I would say about like what I just brought up in terms of do the emotions have emotions too? Like what I would say to that?
Why is that a dumb question?
But what I'm just goofing about, okay? What I would say to that question is the emotions aren't just it is me. The only thing I can ever feel is fear or sadness or joy or whatever. They are, like as I said earlier, sort of like the figureheads, the representatives that are holding up these ideals. They don't always have to be privy to whatever it is. And I think the movie stays true to that logic, and as a result, it doesn't like break any sort of interior logic for Joy to be able to start crying at the end. She's committed to these values, and they're challenged and changed and developed over the course of the film. And I feel like if you just made it so they were their emotions and they couldn't be anything else, then we would have really flat characters, and it would have been exactly what I was afraid of going into the movie, which is that it would just be anger, and they're all self-serving jerks that all think they have a great idea and never do anything different, and they suck, and I hate watching them.
And I agree with you that the movie, it doesn't break interior logic for Joy to cry.
Yeah.
Because I guess you're right, they are kind of more representatives, almost like politicians representing a political platform. Is kind of the way I took it. Going back to this idea of them being like politicians almost.
Sure.
But then it goes back to this idea that makes it extremely concrete. Where I want it to be this abstract film. and in an abstract version of this film, it wouldn't have the same story, but like this abstract version of this film, a character that is all joy wouldn't be grating. Like it would be if they were supposed to be an actual person. Because the way this is in the movie is that they exist in a metaphysical world, but for all intents and purposes, Joy is supposed to be like an actual person.
Yeah.
And not Joy. Her name is Joy, but like she's not Joy.
Right.
With like a big capital J. In the abstract version of this film, which I think would have been more interesting, Joy being happy all the time would not be grating. Anger being angry all the time would
But why wouldn't it be, though? I feel like it would. It's just you're saying that it wouldn't because it's the idea you like. Why would it not come across as grating?
Because they're not... Because you're thinking of it as if a person is happy all the time and self-serving.
But it doesn't necessarily matter if, like, they're like a humanized person. It would still be an annoying character.
To be really honest, the abstract version of this film, when I heard, we're delving into a girl's mind, I didn't think emotions. I'm surprised that it was about emotions. Because emotions have nothing to do with the mind.
Well, I think that's...
Well, scientifically, sure, but the traditional concepts of mind versus heart, of logic versus of feeling, right? This is all feeling. When I first heard this pitch, nothing about it insinuates emotions, does it? We're going to explore. We're going to explore a girl's mind. When do you ever think about emotions with the mind?
But aren't our thoughts informed by our emotions, and ergo our emotions?
Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily, but
not saying that they wouldn't play a role.
Yeah.
But when I was pitched this movie, I thought it was going to be a really something really cerebral that was more about thought and memory and logic versus, that maybe that would be the conflict between emotion.
But here's the thing, Peter. Your point just made me really angry right now, which is why I'm saying this. My emotions are controlling my ideas right now to the worstness of my argument and my ability to make word good choice bad good. See, so I'm so frustrated. I can't speak. So it's making a comment by the fact that the emotions are the ones that are in charge of your mind and are in charge of your actions in the real world.
Not every act. But that's wrong though. Not you're saying sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes emotions can overtake thoughts, not emotions inform thoughts. They overtake thoughts. Well, if I'm deciding if I want to, donate this money to this person, like let's say I see someone's raising money for their film, and I'm trying to decide.
We're film students, so we have to think of everything within film.
Yes, of course.
And within those terms.
Okay, exactly.
Go ahead.
Do you want me not use that example?
Because if you said like raising money for like a basketball team, my head would have exploded.
Do you want me to think of another example?
No, go ahead.
We're trying to raise money, and I think, okay, I could donate money to them, but I'm running a little low on cash, so I'm gonna donate maybe after my paycheck. There's absolutely no overt emotion about that. You can say, oh well, how much you like that person, and then but that's tangential. That's not really informing.
That's not tangential at all.
But the emotions, what emotions were informing that decision primarily? No, it was all logic based. Okay, I have this money. I want to do this money. I don't have it now, so I'm going to wait.
Well, if we were to translate that into an Inside Out scene, you would have fear being like, what if we run out of money and we have to live on the street?
Just in real life, you think thoughts are always informed by emotion?
Not every single one, but
mostly
important, impactful ones often are. The ones we're talking about here, with a family, with a girl. Suppressing her emotions as they're coming into this really then sort of challenging transition for her in her young life. Yes, I think it makes sense to tell that through the perspective of emotions rather than just because you don't logically respond to that scenario. You don't just go, well, Dad had to go here because of work.
Find me another example of like think like the episode of SpongeBob where they have all like the people in his head, right? There's no emotion about that.
Squilliam returns.
Yeah. There's no, of course. The classic. There's no element of emotions in that scene. It's all about the way the brain is functioning, right? And
his name.
And you could be about subconscious, and you could make it more about emotions, right? But I think this notion that these emotions are so integral to this, like I would have preferred. So my point being is that if you were to make the abstract version of this film based off of the original pitch, does not necessarily include a character that's always angry.
Okay. No. That I can understand.
You could have it where it's like someone is up there and they have a response list that they can choose.
Yeah.
Like there's no
right way to do it. No, this I agree. I see what you're saying.
What's the word? There's no like edict is the word. There's no edict saying to do this story you need to have some kind of representations of the emotions.
Of course,
you could have done where emotions are almost like currency. Like you only have so many, and like you can, you know what I mean? Like there's so many ways you could do it. So this isn't the logical way I thought this, like from the pitch, you know. And then if you do this, then you can't do the abstract version, which I think is more interesting to do.
But I feel like what they're trying to say here is less about sort of this high concept idea of like the civilization of, okay, politicians or currency or something like that. It's about evaluating the perspective and how, given the very same event, if you have two different lenses, which are emotions, you will view it in a different way. And I think what I feel is a very underrated instant classic of a scene. And it seems very simple, but that's just because it's so succinct in its brilliance. Very early on, when Joy is trying to like talk to Sadness about how you find the fun, and talking about stuff like, remember that part when you see Riley laughed so hard, like milk like went up her nose, and then Sadness like, oh, I do remember, like it really it hurt, it made me upset. Or like when she's talking about the rain, oh, I like rain, and Joy goes, rain is my favorite too. You get to splash in puddles and stuff. Yeah, and then our boots get all soggy, and then we just stand there. It's sad. Yeah. That's and just the way that's edited and the visuals.
That's one of my favorite parts.
I think that's such an excellent scene because that's like
that's what I quite, you know, that might be one of my favorites in this movie as well because it's a better representation of like how this works. I think.
That's when I think it totally it sells me completely on this premise of, yes, we chose to have emotions because the whole point is Riley is stuck in this one situation. She's stuck with the fact that they moved to San Francisco. And there are different ways that she can look at it. At any certain point, she walks in, oh god, this empty room, oh, this is terrible. Oh, but then instead she could think about all the different things she's going to put in it. And how, then our life is going to get better. Or, oh, then our parents then, upset because, there's a problem with, all their stuff getting there on time. So then she makes it into a nice little moment, but then they're playing hockey and stuff. So it's all about the way that you view life. Life is going to be what it is. Stuff is going to happen, no matter what. But it's how you respond to it. And not necessarily always then looking at it positively, which is how, early on you could think about the movie. Very smart choice in that early on, I feel like you are on Joy's side, and that you're like, Sadness, you're being annoying. You're ruining everything. So it puts you in Joy's corner so that you're able to accompany her on her journey. It doesn't make it obvious, Joy is being, there isn't a scene when Riley's at, a funeral for grandma, and then Joy makes her go wee!
Yeah.
They don't,
the dead body,
I wasn't gonna go that far, but yeah, they don't do that. Everything seems like it's positive and we're making the right choices, including when, okay, we're gonna be happy for mom because it's important we be the happy girl. It all seems like it's done. It's sort of the right choice. We're doing the right thing for the whole family, but yeah.
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
And I think this is in support of what I'm saying about, I think there's not enough Riley or real world stuff in the movie. This whole idea of, people always reference that. You just did it. The idea of, they want her to be her happy little girl. And that's, the driving thing. She's trying to suppress it. They bring it, there's only twice that idea is ever brought up. When the mom is in the bedroom. And then at the end. When she's like, I know you want me to be the happy little... There's the only two times where that's ever reinforced. It's not, consistently reinforced either before the mom says that, or any other time do the parents reinforce that idea throughout the film.
Right.
And people try to say, people will be like, I felt this way, my parents made me feel, as if it's an analog for other people's life, but the parents don't, and not to say that they're malicious, the arguments could be, but they're not doing it intentionally. They're just doing it.
Of course not.
But then I would have liked to still see them unintentionally reinforce that idea more. And it's only once.
No, I can see that, but I feel like it's not introduced and then dropped. it informs everything that follows.
It seems more like she's not trying to be happy because of mom and dad. She's trying to be happy because... And this is something more... That's maybe just getting annoyed at people who watch it, being like, that's what it's about! About people expect you to be happy. Well, no, because it's more like Joy is her own driving force. When from the minute she's conceived, Joy is like, I want her to be happy all the time. Not because mom and dad want me to be happy. There's that scene where she goes, whoa, and like decides to... But I think Joy has her own motivation to just have Riley be happy all the time. That... The reasoning that her parents...
But that's
wanted to be
feeding
happy.
into her desire, is the thing.
Sure, but it wasn't fed in enough. I would have liked to see that.
Okay, like fair enough. But I do think it remains relevant. Again, not dropped. It's just, but it's introduced.
And you could have made that indie movie where it is just all about the human world, and we see that, that reinforcement, and we see that play out.
Okay.
You know, maybe there's some truth to what you're saying, that there is something to be added with seeing the subconscious, right, and not just having the human world. But I still think I would have preferred to see the human world, and then you just tell some kind of different story.
Okay.
That maybe has a slightly different message. Maybe. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I think I just find myself gravitating towards either you completely stick to the subconscious world. Like, it would be like... no, because that would work better. Because it's not supposed to be... But I was going to say, like, in Monsters, Inc., it'd be like if we're splitting our time...
Between the monster world and the human world?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, like, one was much more lopsided. But, like, we have enough of the other one where it's like, now you're just not doing it enough. You know what I mean? It'd be like doing that. Whereas in this, I want you to either completely just focus on the subconscious stuff or completely focus on the human stuff.
Okay.
And that's just a fundamental thing about the movie that I don't think is going to change.
I think you could say that about any movie that's divided into two halves, in a sense. Not to say that it has to be two different
But it's not really
worlds.
two halves, though.
But no, I know. But, like, I just mean two halves, like, not like it spends half its time here, half its time there. I just mean two different elements of what it could be about. So, I think the obvious go-to example here is Kevin James' Zookeeper. And how...
What?
What?
Okay. I've never even seen that.
Okay.
Pick another... I'm not even going to know what you're talking about.
No, I'm going to stick with Zookeeper. So, from what I can remember, which I was dragged to this movie, it was absolutely god-awful. But the reason it was god-awful is that the whole point of it is supposed to be that, like, you know, he works at the zoo. He is, after all, a zookeeper, as the title would suggest. And he's there at night, and then all the animals start talking to him, and they give him, like, relationship advice or whatever. So it's supposed to be like Night at the Museum, sort of. But they don't take nearly enough advantage of the fact that there are these animals that come to... At a certain point, they become an afterthought, and it's really weird because you thought that was the whole point of the movie. So I feel like if then you spent too much time... The reason I brought this up is if you spend
Please explain.
If you spend too much time outside of Riley's mind, and again, this is assuming that we are doing this story in which the emotions are there at all. If you spend too much time outside of the mind, you're not taking advantage of that premise. And it's like, well, then why do you even bother including this?
You're right.
Yeah.
Which is why I would say, why bother? And then just do that.
Right. Okay.
No, because you're right. Because I think if you do... Maybe if it was a 2-hour movie. Yeah, that's the thing, though. Is like we're saying, assuming if it's still like an hour, because how long is it? An hour and a half?
Yeah, like probably like 100 minutes or something. Not even.
Maybe if it was a little longer. But then again, and then it's logistics over the creative, where well, it can't be like 2 hours and 10 minutes because like the kids won't sit through it.
I don't think there's okay.
If it's good, kids will sit through
I don't think this
3.5 hours.
I don't think this movie is crying out to be any longer. But I understand your perspective.
I just wish, it's just, I find myself so engaged. I'm gonna bring up an example. I think it's a little more apt than the Zookeeper.
Okay.
And
I highly doubt it.
And I've not seen it in forever.
Okay.
But comparisons have been made. So I can't speak about it with extreme authority.
Sure.
But I brought up Osmosis Jones.
Okay.
Right?
I've never actually watched it. I hear there's some cool stuff.
There's cool ideas. That goes balls to the walls with this, like, explaining the world of how it works, where it's, like, every element. Because it's more about, like, the health of it.
Yeah.
It is more like kind of Bill Murray's character is kind of like a robot. But it intercuts live action scenes.
Like, how often are we in that framing device, actually?
The Bill Murray stuff?
The Bill Murray stuff. Is it of comparable length to Riley here, or is it less? Is it more?
Honestly don't remember.
Okay.
But there's enough of it where it's trying to have us care about Bill Murray.
Okay.
I
didn't know it like really even had that much. I thought it was just like maybe like the beginning and end.
No, it's like it's like an active thing.
Okay.
The whole someone's gonna comment like, oh, that's not actually what happens. But from what I remember, like the plot is like Osmosis. I forget what happens in like the A plot, but the B plot with Bill Murray is that
thankfully your memory of Osmosis Jones hasn't gone to the memory.
Yeah.
It is a little faded, but here we go.
he's getting sick throughout it. 'Cause what's going on with the so. I hate to say this, but there's more of a back and forth. What's happening is affecting, like the villain is like doing something that's causing Bill Murray to be sick.
Okay.
And they're trying to like stop the villain, right? And then when we're going back and we're seeing Bill Murray like get sick or something, or get like the common cold or something, right? And in that movie, I almost forget like the point. I forget my point.
I don't know, like that. Now I'm just wondering why the villain would be trying to get Bill Murray sick, because if Bill Murray dies, they're all gonna die.
Maybe it's not. Maybe that's not what it is. I forget.
That's a stupid villain.
I forget. But my point being is that a couple things about that. Actually, the Nostalgia Critic reviewed Osmosis.
No, I know, and it had like an Inside Out as a sketch through which they sort of like were able to look at Osmosis Jones, because before they had asked
him, making the criticism that Inside Out isn't as original as everyone makes it out to be. That was the criticism.
Yeah. No, he talked about that because he didn't want to review Osmosis Jones because there wasn't enough to say about it. But in the advent of Inside Out, there was more to talk about. And of course, Doug, he loves Inside Out. He thinks it's great, but he did use that as an opportunity to engage with it a bit more critically.
But I almost, to be completely honest, I kind of forgot why I brought this up. But to make this comparison.
But well, you said how there's more of a connection back and forth.
There's more of a connection, but also like, it doesn't try to make it be equally important.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it has probably the same amount of screen time, and yet is supposed to not only be as important as like the emotion stuff,
right?
But also like the big emotional moment is in the human world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all connected, and it's like joy and sadness doing together. But like, what really hits you in the feel? Seeing them hit the keyboard, or like actually seeing Riley
going, oh my god,
which is a really great scene. I just want that movie. Like, I love that scene. As much as I'm complaining about this movie, like there are a lot of great moments in it. That being one of few, unfortunately for me. Like that is so good.
Honey, we're not mad. We're not. Oh god.
I miss I wish that scene was just.
I still
like
get a lump in my throat watching that.
Something like I love Smallville, I love Friday Night Lights. There's something about good old family drama that hits me in my sweet spot. And no matter how schlocky it is, which Smallville is very schlocky, especially like early on, it hits me. It really gets me.
And this ain't schlocky. This is dumb.
What I was gonna say is that if the whole movie had just been a family drama, I would have liked that more. That would have been more risky. You know what I'm saying, but it's not as accessible. And this is the first time I feel like they made, because this is the first movie after Toy Story 3.
I do take issue with saying that this is more accessible than just doing a straight family drama, because I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it could just get so convoluted with this way that, like, you'd be asking, why couldn't we just had a simple story about a family? Which there are plenty of those targeted towards kids. Sure, Pixar doesn't normally go down that route, but that's usually because they have these really high.
This would be more
stories.
Convoluted because there'd be more going on,
right?
But I say it's more accessible in terms of what it's trying to do. Like this is in terms of
the emotional message.
You take issue with the word. I don't mean in a pejorative sense, but doing it this way telegraphs the emotions. Because it is showing the emotions. Is it not showing the emotions?
I would say illustrate, not tell.
Illustrate. Sure. Well, semantic. I'm not saying it in a bad way.
Okay.
It just is showing what's going on underneath.
Yes. Which
is as great as it's executed. As creative as it is. As much as you love the emotions, the characters that they make out of these emotions.
Yes.
Objectively, just the nature of it, you are showing me exactly what a character is feeling. Objectively, right? That's the whole premise, that we're seeing physicalized what's going on underneath, right? For me, my tastes have evolved where it's always more interesting to just see human beings interact and trying to gauge how they're feeling based off what they're saying, what they're not saying.
But I hate all the humans.
I hate all the humans! I love Princess Mononoke. I hate all the humans!
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I know.
Yes, it could be more. So that's why I say when it's more accessible. Like, there's no confusion about what Riley's feeling. That's the whole plot. Is her feelings exist, like as people, and like there's no confusion, is what I'm saying. Whereas if you do it the other way, where it's just all human, it's a little more. It's not as accessible, especially to a younger audience.
But I will say, I don't feel like I lose anything from just how much time we spend with Riley. I don't feel like, I would have had a greater understanding of then where sort of then sees that. Like, I understand in terms of like if you would prefer the aesthetic and just the tone and atmosphere of that movie instead, but I don't feel like we're losing anything.
I want to see. You know, I want to see her. If it's all about being in this new place, I would like to see her interact with this new place a little more.
Okay.
Because it's more like these like very small segmented vignettes. Like she goes to school for like 2 seconds.
But like
she goes to the
I think
hockey place for like 2 seconds.
That's about attesting to it having this universality to it, this relatable like sort of, as opposed to it's not about this girl moves to San Francisco. It's about if you were to move with your family, and then how you would feel about, and the way the movie is constructed, it's helping like distribute that feeling.
But specifics are good though.
No, I understand.
I understand the value of a blank slate kind of thing. Like, oh, anyone can be this. But when you're giving me, again, go back to teetering. You've given me too much about Riley.
Okay.
That I want to know more. You've given me about the fact that it's San Francisco. So now I want you to go to that to the fullest extent.
I understand.
So I agree with your point, but the movie doesn't do that.
Okay.
It doesn't give you a blank slate in the way you mean.
Right. I would argue I don't want her to go too far that Riley's just like it's in every girl and she's just like walking around with a blank expression like, oh yeah, okay, here we go, like, and it could be anyone. Like, yeah, whatever. So I think, you know, and maybe that's unfair of me to basically my criticisms being like this movie would have like
been
fundamentally disagreeing with the movie. Yeah.
And maybe it goes to a sense of like, you know, I just would have made it differently.
Okay.
And I think that's a lot of the issues. But I think there are some other small things I don't want to get too much into, but like in terms of like, even if I'm buying into like this is the way you're gonna make the movie,
yeah,
like because even if I don't agree, like if I think there's a better version of a movie, sometimes I can still meet it at its level, saying, okay, well, if you're gonna do this, then like you're doing it well. There's still parts of this that I don't like, even on that level. We're gonna disagree. I really don't want to get too much into it because we're just gonna disagree.
Okay.
Like, I do not like Bing Bong. I think he's the Jar Jar Binks of this movie.
Alright, well then we gotta get into it.
No, and I do not buy but it's showing this idea of you know, like, this thing that she has to move on from her old life, and he's just an annoying character. I'm not a fan of that actor.
Richard Kind?
Richard kind of annoying. I don't like his character. I don't like the performance.
Okay.
I don't like the way he's written. His only function is, I guess, to kind of be, except for if you want to add this to the matter, it's the moving on. I really don't care. His only main story function is to help guide them, which doesn't make sense though, because Sadness read the manual, so they don't need a guide. They have a guide.
All right, here we go. Oh,
right?
Boy. Okay.
Right?
So,
and also I have to agree with Grace Randolph in that this movie is not emotionally manipulative.
Oh boy.
But it's way too much sentimentality.
All right, that's it. The can of worms has been opened now, Peter. You asked for it. Okay.
I specifically said I'm not asking for it. I don't want to.
Well, too bad. Too bad. So, Bing Bong.
Jesus
okay.
Christ.
So, basically,
I struck a nerve. Jesus Christ.
My anger is
Do
going.
you have an
crazy.
imaginary friend? And this is I'm challenging your delusions.
Oh God.
Did you forget?
Mr. Sniffles. I can't remember him. He's gone.
And he killed himself for you.
Yeah.
So that Joy could promise a promise that she can't.
Okay, hold on. All right. Here we go. Bing
Explain
Bong.
to me how it's a metaphor for moving on.
No, I'm going to just talk about... first, I'm just going to talk about Bing Bong as Bing Bong. I'm not going to talk about...
Meet him on his own terms.
I'm going to meet him
Bing
on his
Bong.
own terms. Bing Bong as Bing Bong.
I love how my parents paid for me to go to NYU Film School, so I can talk about characters like Bing Bong.
Bing Bong. All right, here we go. So, when another concern I had... Well, I didn't really know much about Bing Bong going in.
I didn't even know he existed. until I saw
Right,
the film.
exactly, because they kept it very much a secret. And I understand why, because if you're marketing the movie and this sort of, like, weird esoteric idea of, like, oh, then the emotions are controlled. If you throw in, and the imaginary friend, too, it, like, sort of weakens the pitch, and you're like, well, what? Like,
Yeah.
so then it's that, too. So I understand why they did that, and also just a surprise, and, you know, don't give everything away in the trailer. But when we first were introduced to him, I was like, okay, like, is this just gonna be our annoying comic relief who maybe we're telegraphing to end up being the villain? Because think of it this way, he's then sort of like a Lotso-ish character in a way that it's this pink, like, huggable guy who's friendly and...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In your explanation of this, are you going to bring up, as evidence for why he should be in the film, the scene where he loses his thing, and then Sadness illustrates the climax of the film early?
I mean, I was going to talk about
No,
that
that's
scene,
reasonable.
but I wasn't going to talk about it in terms of why, like, Bing Bong's presence here is good. Although, I think that's a really important scene in that it obviously, it sets up where then we end up, like, going, and that it's the first sign of which sadness is something relevant, in that she listens to him and just sort of hears what he has to say, and we see it displayed in action, and it makes so much more sense that in a more muddled film you wouldn't have a scene like that earlier on. You would just sort of very subtly have like these notions of, okay, I guess then sadness is then kind of then being helpful, but how is that helpfulness translating to the real world, and how do we see that translate before we get to the very end when it's the whole point? I think that is great in terms of queuing us up for the mission statement of the film, and that it doesn't give too much away too fast. It does, like, it lets us take a moment. It lets us see how joy could be a little problematic, and joy does sort of start to see the benefit in how sadness was able to make like Bing Bong feel like his feelings were heard and acknowledged, and it was able to let them continue on the adventure. But yeah, it doesn't go too far in that it gives it away, I don't think. But anyway, I wasn't going to bring it up.
I like how he becomes like a major character.
Okay. But what I was going to sort of then talk about, again, I'm just talking about Bing Bong as Bing Bong. I was really worried that he was just going to be annoying, and Bing Bong is Bing Bong. And you know what? He had one of the few lines that made you laugh out loud, which was the whole thing about cow goes moo, dog goes whatever. It's all they talked about back then.
That was really funny.
Yeah. So I was worried that he would just have all of this annoying, and he'd be messing things up all the time. And, like, yeah, he does then sort of, give them all of these terrible ideas. But, number one, a lot of the terrible ideas lead to highly amusing sequences, like the abstract thought sequence. And number two, like, they sort of play it off in a really funny way. Like, when Joy goes, oh, is this another one of your shortcuts? And he goes, yeah! And then leads them the way. I think that's really funny. But also, there's another scene that I'm thinking about, which is when they're in Dream Productions, and Joy has the bag of memories that she's holding all the core memories in, and she gives them the Bing Bong, and they have a scene where it's like, now Bing Bong, don't lose the bag of memories, and Bing Bong's like, oh, don't worry, Joy, I won't, and then everyone in the audience goes, because of course Bing Bong's gonna mess up. But Bing Bong, it's not Bing Bong's fault at all. The reason that it ends up,
justice for Bing Bong.
Justice for Bing Bong. No, the reason joy is that we're gonna excite her awake. So I don't think that's a thing that hasn't happened. But yeah, like joy is that, again, happiness is always the solution. So this is what I'm going to do. Whereas what actually ended up needing to happen was trauma and the shock and horror of seeing something truly horrific that would get someone awake. Yeah, like a dog cut in half, or the clown,
or your imaginary friend.
Or your imaginary friend you haven't thought about in years. Huh? Bing Bong. I have to say, okay, while we're on the subject of Dream Productions, the fact, like, not just like the meta-contextual nature of, like, okay, the actor, like, the writers come up with a killer script and, like, oh, she's a terrible actor. Fear just hate watching Dream Productions is like, I would never use this phrase, but it's like my aesthetic. I love that whole idea.
Is he meant to be hate watching? I thought he's just watching because there's nothing
else
to watch.
But he has to watch because he's on dream duty. But he's sort of just saying all this stuff about, like, oh, let me guess, like, she didn't come in her pants, like, I called it, and then he slowly then just sort of becomes enraptured and actually, like, scared. But, like, before that, you have the great part when it's like Bing Bong shows up and Pierre's like, Bing Bong? And then it shows, like, the unicorn, like, stuffing her face with, like, desserts on, like, the craft service on set. Boo! Pick a plot line! So funny. Yeah. Like, how do you even, like, that's, again, going at this idea of, like, taking something that, oh, it's sort of a funny idea that then they're dreams, and just doing it to the nth degree that, like, I've never seen it done in such a way that you have so many layers to it.
Not in 100,000 years.
Not in 100,000 years. But but yeah, again, it doesn't just make Bing Bong always this annoying character who then has to be wrong or has to be evil or even has then his own sort of redemption. The whole point of Bing Bong is that it is something that has to be left behind. And it, yeah. But let me talk about how that's other than, like, no, I don't want to hear you say about how, like, the theme is you have to grow up and that's how you sound. When you mimic me, that's how you sound. So I'm mimicking you, mimicking me. But, so, I'm going to talk about Bing Bong.
Grating, isn't it?
And yeah, it is grating, coming from you. For me, it's just, it makes sense, and I'm trying to, like, talk about the film and not undervalue, like, points that come from the heart that I think have relevance. But anyway, so
beautiful.
that's beautiful.
That's profound.
Okay, so when I'm talking about Bing Bong here, then by extension I'm going to talk about Joy, because you think that Joy is like a bad character and that she's annoying, and I like let me just add, like as a side tangent add that Pete Docter himself was really apprehensive about.
I was gonna say Pete Docter also thinks she's annoying.
Pete Docter hates Joy. In fact, he hates the film. He's disowned the film since its release. No, he was really concerned that Joy would come across as annoying, like, you know, oh, she's always happy all the time, but she doesn't, because everything about whenever she does push her happy, it's always in service of Riley, and it's always in service of the right thing to do. It's never like obtrusively or seeming like too like on the nose, annoying, and at the torture of others that then Joy sort of like shows then her happy. And we also, I think it's really important that we see her starting to get a little frustrated with sadness, and sadness being like, oh, like I'm sorry, I'm annoying, and Joy being like, oh, well, like, so we get this sense of there is a personality and there is something that she's trying to uphold, and she can get annoyed and frustrated and feel like she's being like suppressed, or her voice isn't being heard. There's more dimension to her than just, I am just happy all of the time, 100%. But of course, then the whole point of her character is that she shouldn't always be happy, and that's what she has to learn. But I'm saying that even at like in the beginning, it's not grating, and it's not like, okay, well, yeah, it is this really terrible character, but then she'll become good. Like, no, like at the start, it is someone who then it's clearly passionate, has a very loving relationship with Riley, thinks she's filtering out what's unhealthy for her, and we can root for her. And as I said, the way the movie sets itself up, we're in her corner. And I think that really helps. But again, going into how this ties into Bing Bong. So, we have this whole idea of Joy, sadness, and Bing Bong. And of course, Joy and Bing Bong get along really well. Because Bing Bong he's representing the always happy and lovable, but also ignorant and naive side of...
It's like a yell. Like, but lovable! Oh,
but also... ignorant and naive side of Joy that we'll see in the earlier part of the movie. And of course, the point at which he is gone, the point at which he fades away at the memory dump, comes at the same time that Joy is starting to realize the reason for Sadness's existence. And because what we sort of then have to learn is that although like crazy fun is wonderful, and again is like also just sort of indicative of any Pixar animator or any sort of kid at heart, like we'll really identify with the character of Bing Bong. It's just big clown, like we can identify with that. But there is this truth to the fact that a certain level of unrestrained like wackiness and silliness does need to be let go at a certain age. And Joy, it's not just Riley is losing Bing Bong. Joy has to lose the side of herself that's Bing Bong in that moment. And I think it's highly relevant to her arc there. And it's not just like a stupid, like, oh, well, we killed off Bing Bong. Isn't it dark and crazy that we did that? Shouldn't you cry now? No, it's directly relevant to the themes of the films. And it's directly relevant to Joy becoming more emotionally mature and ergo Riley becoming more emotionally mature. Because he was this character that he could have come across as annoying beyond belief, but he was endearing and he was sincere, and in the end of the day, he was tragic, and it was an integral part of the arc, and it was about learning to broaden your horizons and say that there is a certain point at which we have to leave behind a certain level of just unbridled, untempered happiness and go on to the next stage. He absolutely like has a place in this film, and he owns it. And you know what? After he leaves, they don't compromise it at all. They don't have like he's like, take her to the moon for me. Like, okay, they don't make it so, oh, actually he did survive at the end, or they don't even go so far as to have it be like, because Joy goes like, I'll try Bing Bong, I'll try, I promise. They don't have Joy make Riley draw like an astronaut going to the moon on like a piece of paper, like, oh, see, in a way I did let her go to the moon. No, like the whole notion of then Riley, we're gonna play with her and she's gonna be like, I'm going to the moon. Those days are over. That's gone. As far as Bing Bong has the capacity to understand, that is just like bliss for Riley. That is his comprehension of what satisfaction
Just like
is
take
in
care of
life.
her, like
But yeah, exactly.
help her succeed in
Joy
life or
needs to
something.
translate that and take her to the moon for me. Is then sort of like what Joy learns is that like she can like sort of then take her to the moon, but not in the way that Bing Bong can comprehend. It has to then.
He has a limited understanding of
He has a
reality.
limited understanding of reality, and she has to.
I was saying that
no.
sarcastically.
No, but he does. Oh, no, he legitimately does.
No, I know. But
And he,
it's very heady for Bing Bong.
but that's exactly the point. And Joy then, yeah, she needs to translate those sort of naive desires into something that fits into the world and something that is actually fulfilling in an adult life. And there's something so profound
Like
about
getting a
that.
promotion at work.
Like getting a promotion at work, exactly.
I want to see this.
Don't
I want to see
I
this
took her
sequel where
to
she's
the
an
moon
adult.
for you, yeah.
I want to see her as an adult.
Yeah.
Something I want to bring up.
Okay.
And this will lead into I think the last part of this discussion because we're coming up. We're about a little over. I think we're about an hour 45.
Oh my god. This is the longest one. I was expecting this.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Pixar films, there's been a trope that's developed.
Okay.
The two characters trapped somewhere that's supposed to to show like the lowest point.
Every movie's the same in terms of
No.
Pixar. Okay, go ahead. I know. I'm just being the cynical exaggeration of your argument. That a lot of people actually are.
Yeah. So like in Toy
Did you
Story-
realize Lion King and Frozen are literally the same movie? So there's this royalty that runs away, and it's a musical, and it's animated by Disney, it's literally the same movie. Like, literally, if you put them on at the same time, you put them over each other, you couldn't tell that there was two different movies. Literally, guys. I don't know how anyone didn't notice. Anyway, okay, subscribe to my
this
channel.
is getting long. We should-
All right, go ahead.
So in Toy Story, it's when they're under the bucket, when he's with the rocket and in the
crate, yeah.
In Monsters Inc., it's when they're in the Himalayas. In Finding Nemo, I would say maybe,
whale?
Yeah, maybe the whale. Was it not necessarily the lowest point, but just like some scene like that where they're trapped
Yeah.
somewhere. I guess you could say maybe Incredibles to a degree when they're all like locked up. Basically,
But
it's
they
where
get out of that
characters.
pretty fast.
It's kind of like where characters have to face the things that they were avoiding. Oftentimes,
Oh, you
having
mean like
to do
the
with each
crucial
other.
point of a story?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's when you're trapped somewhere. Right.
Uh-huh.
This film does that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah, I have issue with it because it's like don't you get it? We're stuck down here.
You've turned
I'm not done.
Okay, go ahead.
I turned that into a meme, and it's not a meme, but it is.
But you were going to move on from, like, not just this, but tell me why that line is a problem.
Oh, because it isn't it like it's either like the same line or like very similar to Mike's line in Monsters Inc. The other when he's like, "Don't you get it? We're stuck in this," or whatever he says. Like it's very similar.
Trapped here in the human world.
Whatever it's very similar.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Like character trying to get out, and character, "Don't you get it?" It's always like, "Don't you get it?" Like, "Don't you understand?" Also like
that's okay.
Also, really like the movie like takes like a left turn real quick. Like the way characters have been talking and the writing has been, and I don't care if it's a different situation now. No. You still have to keep some kind of eternal logic. What's his name? The voice actor for Bing Bong,
Richard Conn.
is giving like a different him. He's giving like a completely different voice performance. He's like the whole time he's been like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And even when he's upset or being serious, he's still like this like certain kind of hyper stylized voice. But then when he's like, "Joy, can you stop, please? Joy, stop."
Well,
it's like a completely different take on the way like this movie's being presented.
Well, maybe it has something to do with not only the fact that they landed in the memory dump, but the fact that he looked at his hand and his hand is disappearing.
But that was
He's
before.
literally-
This is not when his hand starts to disappear. I'm pretty sure this is before his hand starts.
I'm
to
pretty
disappear.
sure that happens like as soon as he falls in.
But even so, now his personality is different. It's suddenly become different. His voice delivery is different.
Yeah, it is different, but
But it's like really like
You're saying it's a breach of internal logic. I really think that's an extreme way to put it.
He's like, "Joy, will you stop it, please?" Like it's trying to become like this movie, like it's trying to become like more naturalistic all of a sudden. Nothing about this movie's been naturalistic in any way. The way he's delivering the
It
lines.
is
But
such a
anyway.
dire situation, though. In the
But
same way
it's-
that the incinerator scene in Toy Story 3 will be such a dire situation, and of
But if
course
that were
then they'll be-
portrayed naturalistically, everyone would be going, "Oh my god! Oh my!" Like it could still be a dire situation, but you presented here's how this world is going to be presented in a film sense.
But when you say the way it's presented, do you mean just like light banter back and forth? Like what?
No,
what's
it's the way
like,
he's delivering the lines and the words he's saying.
I don't see what you're saying, but okay. Like, continue with what you were really gonna say, like your broader point.
My broader point is, he's like, we're stuck down here, whatever.
Okay,
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Whatever. It's right. Like at this point, I'm getting a little annoyed with the trope, but sure. Okay.
Okay.
But that's not
the
my
trope.
Point.
That I can understand that.
But that's not my point.
All right.
Normally, in all the other examples, it was two characters coming to terms with something, and they're directly related to each other. Like in Monsters Inc., the conflict is between each other.
It's the two main characters that are trapped.
Yeah. Why isn't it sadness and joy? Why does it have to be Bing Bong? It was because Bing Bong will disappear and then it feels dark. But this is like the big emotional moment. But it's also a wrapping up of like this B plot with Bing Bong, right. And not, you know what I mean? Like usually this scene is like, I understand the logic of it. I'm not saying it's an illogical scene.
No, I know.
But why isn't it? This is supposed to be a huge emotional moment. Why is sadness not part of this? If the whole movie is about this kind of tug of war between joy and sadness, why isn't this between the two of them?
Well,
they don't have enough. The two of them don't actually have enough conflict. They need to have more conflict throughout the movie.
Okay.
So that it's more satisfying when they resolve, like when they learn, like they should work together. Like sadness should be more. Right now, it's more sadness, basically not existing. She just kind of like exists, but she doesn't actually do anything. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really make any choices, and it's joy kind of ignoring sadness. If the whole movie's about like, trying to like put happiness over sadness and those being at odds and then needing to learn to balance those. Well, there's really no at odds. Mm-hmm. It's more joy just being like, and why is that scene not between the two of them?
Well, to answer your question in terms of why don't we...
But then going to a larger point, I understand what the movie's trying to say, but I don't think it accurately represents what it's trying to say. What it's trying to say is that we need to have a balance. Like sometimes you're going to be happy, sometimes you're going to be sad, and you need to know, like, it's okay to be both at different times, and that's fine. But the movie never, in my opinion, and I have yet to hear a satisfying example within the actual film that's like, that I can't debunk, as being something else, a scene in which it's actually every time sadness is used. This is my problem in movies like with Star Wars, when people talk about like Grey Jedi, like, you need to have a balance between light and dark. Well,
which is something, just to contextualize that a little bit, that's something that we speculate will be part of The Last Jedi. That instead of the light side and the dark, then we're going to have the Grey Jedi, which will be like a middle ground.
Which has always existed, though, by the way. Grey Jedi's always been part of canon.
Yeah, no, I know. But like normal people wouldn't know about it.
So this idea of Grey Jedi is that you need to use the light side and the dark side equally, right?
Sure.
But I don't understand what the negative aspects of the light side are, and I don't understand the positive aspects of the dark side, right? So this whole idea of the people's always explanation is, you need a balance because without light you can't have darkness, like you can't have shadows, like you need light to create a shadow. But with darkness you need light. People always like brush over that one. They always go, well, you need darkness, but then they always brush over why you need darkness to have light.
Yeah.
No, I never understood that. Okay. So with this,
it's
every
the opposite,
time, no, I'm saying it's the same.
Oh, it is the same. No. I just meant in terms of it's not really made clear why you would need
sadness.
Why you would need sadness.
The movie's trying to say like, you need a balance, and I agree. In like real life, you should have a balance.
Oh yeah, no, this is what I thought.
But in the film, it's saying that. But every instance where sadness has been utilized, it's always been a means to an end, and that end being happiness. And the two main examples. And you're saying like, and I think the argument is, but like, she's not like super super happy, but like.
Well, make your argument before you make my argument. Talk about.
I'm 3 steps ahead.
Jesus Christ. Say your piece. Go ahead.
Because there's two main examples. Well, I guess 3 if you count the thing with Bing Bong. But Bing Bong
there are 3, yeah.
But the Bing Bong I'm not gonna count that one because that's basically just the climax again, but just with different characters.
But Bing Bong totally counts. But if you don't want to,
I'm saying it's the same function. It's the same kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not gonna.
So you don't have to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. But go ahead.
Well, no, but why though? Because the scene with Bing Bong. When sadness
because it's going to address exactly what you're talking about. But anyway, go ahead.
Sadness when Riley, I guess there was some incident where she loses the big game. Right? Yeah. And she's sad.
She misses the goal, yeah.
And because, in the movie tries to say, because she was sad, her parents came over to talk to her. And then her team came over to be like, oh no, it's okay, we love you, Riley. And then she became happy, right? I agree that in life, sometimes, like, if you keep having this facade that no one can help, like your friends and family are your biggest asset in overcoming sadness, right? But overcoming sadness,
Right.
overcoming it, as in like it is something that needs to be overcome, and then like vanquished, for starters. And then I'm not done. Okay. I'm gonna address the Bing Bong one because
Okay.
I don't think that's a ridiculous thing for me to.
It's not ridiculous, but I'm gonna talk about it. Go ahead.
At the end, she's sad. She lets sadness do her thing, and then sadness lets joy hit the button, and then Riley smiles, right? It's like, oh, it's over, joy. It's just she smiled a little. She's happy.
She didn't even actually smile at all. Like she just
her mouth curls up.
Like a bit, but
So
it's not like a grin. She doesn't go.
No, but the point being that she's like, it is now a positive emotion. Like it's happy. Like she's like, it's a positive
in a sense,
some degree.
yes.
Not in a sense, like yes, like it's some kind of positive emotion. That's the whole point. Because the music swells.
Yeah.
And the movie, the music score telegraphs to me, she's supposed to be happy. Like this is happy. This is a good thing. Right?
That it's a good thing. Yes.
And that because she's happy. She's not as sad anymore. Sadness is a thing to be overcome. And thirdly, with Bing Bong, the Bing Bong functions the exact same way. Sadness, he's sad, so then sadness knows to go over to him. He cries it out. And then, my God, that scene is like a huge tonal shift. 30 seconds before, like, he's chasing him this cartoon way. No, that's my ship! And then it falls. And then, like, it's like Nagasaki. Like, it's like a bomb just went off. And like, it's like intensely quiet. And he's like,
Riley
depressed.
Can't be done with me, he says.
But like within like an instant, the movie, and I know it's like, oh, but like it happened in an instant. No, but I mean like the movie's tone. Things can happen in an instant, but like the movie needs to keep some kind of consistent tone.
I think it builds it in that regard because he starts to see. Wait a minute, they're moving things around in imagination land. Wait, oh, they're
but it's still
tearing down
goofy.
the castle.
It's not.
It's like a little
near.
bit goofy, but it's starting to ease into that.
But it doesn't ease though. It's all goofy until it goes over the side, and then suddenly it goes like Michael Giacchino's score becomes like very somber, like all of a sudden. Before it was like goofily like, oh no, wait, that's my ship. It's great. It doesn't do any favors. You have Richard Kind doing it because he just always sounds like he's being goofy.
Okay, I don't feel like it comes out of left field. I think it is that like it's a sudden moment in which he's like, oh my God, like I'm like I'm like disappearing. Like my purpose, my relevance is fading, and it's sudden. But I think we are eased into that moment. But anyway, is there anything else you want to say?
Then he sits down, and. He has skipped all the other stages of grief. He just like instantly like became depressed.
Okay.
Like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like it didn't become like there's the 5 stages of grief. He completely just jumped right to depression.
Okay.
Right? And then sadness goes over to talk to him, they cried out and he gets up, okay, I'm better now. This way. It's like, oh, because he was sad, they're able to continue on their adventure. He says, this way. Cut to joy. Cut back to Bing Bong. All smiles. Hey, it's this way. And like the music is uplifting. It's like whoa. Within like 2 minutes, we went from goofy to like utterly depressing to immediately, like no exaggeration, with a cut, immediately back. So any justification of he's not immediately happy. Well, and maybe there was a deleted scene. No, seriously, maybe there was a deleted scene that they cut the last second, so like it didn't sync. It wasn't a good transition because it's like jarring how his disposition immediately after that scene. It immediately goes back to him like all smiles, perky, his body language, his face. So in all of those 3 incidents, sadness is a means in which people can come help you and make you happy and overcome the sadness.
Okay. Done?
Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't want to interrupt you until the whole stream of consciousness was out. Okay. So let me address the first thing you said, which was about how why aren't joy and sadness in the memory dome? Why don't we have sadness as presence of? Well, the way I would respond to that is we do have sadness as presence in there by virtue of that like integral memory, which is the whole thing with them losing the big game and seeing the significance of sadness.
But I
understand the character isn't actually there. Joy and sadness have their climax outside of that, which is of course like the resolution in which she says, no, we do need you, and of course also chasing after her. That's more of like a self-actualization for joy. I understand how it has a different function than the other Pixar movies, and that's not the main duo down there. But it's more of an introspective moment because Bing Bong is such a reflection of Joy's like more like naive, weaker side that she has to move past from. So it does sort of function differently, but I think it totally works, and it does still service the main thrust of the film. Although the point that you said about joy and sadness could potentially need to be in more conflict, I think that I understand that. Like I could see how that could be of benefit to the narrative. Addressing what you say though about how it's, I think this is really interesting because I haven't heard this before. How Inside Out is positing not that sadness is a necessary entity unto itself, but it is something to be overcome so we can be happy again.
And that the movie is saying that it's like it's saying one thing and doing another.
Right? Yeah. That this is what it's actually showing, while under the guise of this message. In your reading of it. So what I would say is that in all the like I guess I have to then just like refer to then those three scenes in order to really talk about it, because for like, and I'll go in chronological order with it, right? Because you have then the sadness and Bing Bong scene, and that conversation is then it's showing how then she then has to like listen to what Bing Bong says about like then we used to then do all this great stuff, whereas meanwhile Joy, you were talking about Great Jedi and this whole idea of we never see how the light could be harmful, or we never see the benefits of the dark, and that's your issue with the Great Jedi, right?
More or less, if I could just briefly explain, it's more like...
Go ahead.
Because I think the analogy is going to be like, oh, well, you have too much happiness, they're not accepted. Yeah, but like, the thing about with the control thing, if sadness ever inputs anything, then we're not suppressing any sadness, right? So in this sense, the analogy I presume you're going to make is, well, too much happiness is a problem. Well, no. If there's no sadness to suppress, then pure happiness is great.
And we illustrate it in that scene, because Joy at first is just like, all right, come on, hey, blah, 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 here's a funny face. Come on, let's go to the train station.
That's because they are suppressing Bing Bong's sadness. But I'm saying if there's no sadness to suppress, pure happiness is great. You don't need, like, the movie's trying to say that you need this balance. But if there's no sadness to suppress, then pure happiness is, it should just be pure happiness.
Yeah, because, the only time in which you would need, I'd say the only time, but when you need to embrace sadness is when something sad happens. If something sad didn't happen, then sadness doesn't need to be taking control. I agree, but right? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, my point being like, again goes back to the idea of, well, how does the world work? How exactly is Riley experiencing these emotions? Is it just is it just that sadness exists, or does she have to input emotions into the keyboard?
Right.
If there's no the supposition is that you need like inherently a balance, because too much of one of them is bad. Right? But if one of them, if sadness just doesn't exist, then what's wrong with just pure happiness?
If sadness doesn't exist at all?
Like not the character, but like the input of that emotion.
Oh, the input of that emotion.
Like if Riley's not actually feeling sad, there's nothing to suppress. So what's wrong? But the movie's trying to say
But that's not our world, though. You see what I'm saying? It's like then you're disconnecting us from the reality of life, which is that sometimes sad things happen, and we have to acknowledge them. So like I think that's the answer there.
But isn't it good? But when I'm sad, I don't want to be sad. The whole point of the whole point isn't that when people say it's okay to be sad, they're not saying keep being sad. Like it's good that you're sad. It's more like it's okay to be sad. Like it's not your fault. But like no one's like it's good to be sad. Keep feeling shitty. It's good to feel shitty.
Right.
Keep feeling shitty.
Well, exactly. Because you're not supposed to wallow in it. In the same way that you're not supposed to like be happy all the time, 100%.
My point being that like sadness is
they have to keep each other in check. That's what it is.
No, but
in the same way that sadness keeps joy in check, joy keeps sadness in check.
No, but that's not what I'm saying though. Is like sadness is not something. It's making it to be like some kind of benefit. There's no benefit. There's a benefit in accepting you're sad, but there's no benefit in being sad. There's a benefit in accepting how you're feeling regardless of the emotion. There's no benefit in feeling sad. What's the benefit of feeling sad?
Because then
when you cry, you feel better. You don't become more sad. You feel less sad. When you cry, you accept that you're sad. You're trying to hold back tears. You're not accepting it. When you accept that you're sad and you cry, and when you're done, you're less sad. Your body releases a hormone that makes you feel better. This is biologically speaking. The whole point of crying well, not the reason why it exists, but a side effect of it,
Right, yeah.
is that you get an emotional release and you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is the chemical for happiness is released into your brain. I think it's like I forget what it's called. I think dopamine.
It is dopamine.
I think right, which is like the happiness.
Well, I know that's what it is, but yeah.
So biologically speaking, so there's a benefit to accepting you're sad, but there's no benefit in being sad.
But
what's the benefit in being sad?
But I feel like then it becomes a discussion of semantics, because crying isn't necessarily accepting you're sad. It could just be being sad, even involuntarily at a certain point. I feel I don't know. I think there's really like we're conflating these ideas of accepting sadness and just sadness inherently. And they're becoming entrenched so closely to each other. They're almost exact. Like it's like a Venn diagram where the two circles are almost exactly the same circle, but like not quite.
Just a little bit of sliver.
Yeah. So like that's how I would respond to that. But okay. So then that's
my point being is just like the movie seems to posit this idea that it's good to be sad. It's good to accept to be sad that you're sad. Like not pretend that you're not sad, because it's only when you accept it that you can move on from it. You know, because what's the benefit of being no one? If someone's sad all the time, or not even all the time, but if there's someone sad, you want to cheer them up. You know, not say don't be sad, but you want to try to help them, right?
And that's because they're showing their sadness.
Exactly. So it's a means to become happy, is what I'm saying. Exactly. You just said it. I didn't even mean to corner you, but you just fell into my unintentional trap. That you just said it. Like, yes, exactly, Peter, because you want to help them because they're sad and make them feel better. It's just a means to an end. You just said it. But not even realizing it.
But no. But the fact that you're showing the fact that you're sad and someone is helping you. It isn't
to be more sad.
But they're not helping you to be more sad. It isn't a direct path to Peter. It isn't a direct path to happiness. It's a path to catharsis. It's a path to not like either happy or sad. That's why they show you at the end. It's not that when sadness works together with joy, it doesn't make a happy memory. It's not that the happiness overwhelms the sadness. It's that it's partially happy and partially sad. It's partially yellow and partially blue. It's,
well, the memory is, but the memory is, but not her emotions.
Well, the yellow would completely overtake the blue.
Well, not the memory.
If it was true.
Because even if she becomes if she feels better, she can still look back on the memory and feel happy and sad. Right. I don't have this idea of being happy and sad thinking about memory. No, I don't really think that you feel happy and sad. You feel some other thing. Like, if I'm thinking about a time that I remember fondly, but it's sad that it doesn't exist, I'm not happy and sad. I'm nostalgic. Like, they're not...
But that's why together, like, when you combine them, the sum of their parts is greater, is what I'm saying. It's not just, it's a happy and sad memory. It's when you think about that time that you sort of, like, confessed to your parents about how, like, it was really tough to move and how you miss home. Like, you would think about that, and the way you would look back on it isn't that, like, it's a sad memory or a happy memory. It's some other third thing. But
the movie's showing it's just the two colors. So it is happy and sad is what I agree with you.
Right, yeah.
But the movie isn't doing what you're saying. The movie shows it shows that, but also B, that's more of just a reflection on the thing. But it's still one way or the other. But
it's greater than some
you can't feel okay, great. But that's the memory. I'm talking about how she's feeling.
Okay.
You can't feel two things at once. You can't be happy and sad.
But I'm trying to think about so all the
times
you see what
I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. But like when Bing Bong says like after talking with sadness, like I feel better. He's not like smiling when he says.
Well, the next cut shows that he is.
Like sure, okay, like I can understand that. But in that moment of like acceptance and the catharsis of it, it's not showing him smiling or showing him. He's in this in between state of like, okay, I'm still crying and I'm still like sort of then like I'm all like sniffly and such, but I feel like I've addressed something. So like I feel fulfilled in this state. And again then with the moment in which then Riley loses the big game and then everyone that has to come comfort her. It like she is still like kind of sad and basking in the fact that all right, then like I missed out on the big goal. But she's surrounded by family and friends and it's this other third thing. And again, I think it is really crucial to say that when she does break down in front of her parents and talk about what's been going on inside her head, when she does that, she doesn't just smile. Like you say she smiles as a result of it. It's a very intentional, the expression that she gets. She buried in a hug with her parents. She sort of then. It's almost like it's not happiness.
It's
so
a
much
catharsis.
It's a catharsis, but I'm going to use like not even relief, more just like gratitude.
But it's a positive emotion.
It's like a positive emotion.
That would fall under.
But it's not just joy. It's not sadness as a path to joy. It's not overcoming the sadness. It's gratitude that the sadness has been acknowledged. It's not like, okay, good, now then I can.
I think it's a misread of that scene. She's not like, oh, thank you for accepting. No, it's she feels better.
No, but the expression on her face isn't one of which that feels better. It's one that feels so like.
I don't know if you're pulling gratitude. I think that's a. Like,
I'm looking at the expression on her face and
that's
how.
That's the expression of gratitude. That's what people make when they're thankful.
Her eyes clenched tight and sort of just like this, like I absolutely read gratitude from that expression. I would have to like be looking at it and like point to it. It's kind of hard to get into in more detail, but just this idea that she's not smiling. She hasn't shed her sadness from her. She is just she's grateful, and she knows that she's gotten past the stage of, all right, well then I was sad, but I wasn't willing to confess it. It's there, and it's been displayed, and it wasn't just now we're rid of it, and it's not that we're wallowing in it either. Yeah. We're using our emotions together in a productive way, and I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's what the movie is showing you.
My issue with your word choice of gratitude is I'm not saying it's some other thing. Mm-hmm. It's that it's such a vague expression that there's not enough to even say it's something else. I'm just saying it's either positive or negative, and it's positive. We can agree on that.
But that's
yes
such
or no?
But that's such a. You're looking at it in such a binary way.
Is that a negative expression or a positive expression she makes? Yes or no?
I can't answer that.
It's very clear cut because everything about the movie says this is good now. This is a positive experience.
Like this is good, but you're conflating the idea of something being beneficial to you with something being positive, ergo joy, which I think is inaccurate.
But in what way can you feel sad and that's beneficial to you? Like. Every time you feel sad, you feel like every example I can think of. Like if I'm at a funeral and someone comes over and like gives me a hug or something, I don't feel more sad. I feel better. Yeah. But is that wrong? Is that not correct?
No, I understand what you're. I do understand what you're saying, but I really don't think that it's just then okay, feeling better. As a result, this is joy. As a result, this is a positive emotion, and the positiveness is outweighing the negativeness. And it's a binary decision. This is a positive.
I just don't see
any. I don't think it is.
I just don't see any incident. I don't see in this movie or in any real world example where there's any actual like you can say it, but if in objectively like truthfully, there's no inherent benefit to sadness. There's no inherent. It's something that we have to deal with as human beings. That we have to feel. And it's the only time that there's any benefit to sadness is the only time that there's a detriment is like when I'm not accepting it, when I'm not being truthful with myself.
But I feel like you could then also.
But what scenario? Give me a real world example where being sad is not some kind of like accepting your sad like in what example sadness is inherently a good thing.
But again,
without explaining like but then someone comes to help you because then you feel better. So even if you're not becoming happy, you're lessening the effects of sadness.
I'm going like.
So it's something to be overcome.
In order to explain this, I need to then like.
Nothing about the movie. I'm talking real world.
I know, but let me then say we're talking about fear, and what's the inherent benefit of fear? Because in fear, then it's just like keeping you from doing things that like irrationally and such.
Yes.
No. Well. Oh yeah. But the one time, as you would put it, that fear would be of benefit is if there is something that is actually dangerous to you, that could harm you, that could kill you, and fear restricts you from doing that. So then, like, in a way, you could say fear is just a means to an end for your own self-preservation, like, I guess.
But it's not for another emotion.
But then,
it's not the end is not another emotion. That's the difference.
But this is exactly what I'm saying. I don't think the end of sadness is joy. I don't think the end of sadness is joy. It's not unbridled joy. Woohoo!
No, but not joy. But joy. That's the word they called it, because calling her happiness would be a weird name for a character.
I don't think the end of it is happiness either. It's a sense of fulfillment. It's a sense of catharsis. If you feel better, it's not like, now I feel happy. Now I feel joyous.
But happier.
I guess, but like,
but not. I guess, but like that's the whole. So when you're, but I'm trying to again give me a real world example where being sad inherently is a good thing. There's not.
As I said, in any given scenario with any emotion, including sadness and joy, there are specific instances in which it is like only natural to give in to your urges to have that specific emotion. And having that emotion will eventually carve the path for you to have the next one as you enter the next situation. Because no emotion can ever be driving 24/7. But the point is that in that moment, there is a specific one that is what you should kind of then be feeling. And to keep yourself from feeling that is at your own, like, lack of benefit. And you could say that any specific moment in which something terrible happens and you address that by feeling sad is not true inherent sadness. But that is where then we have to disagree. Because I think that even though that said sadness could eventually lead to a point at which you feel more fulfilled and relieved or grateful or however you want to put it. I would not say joy or happy or whatever. Like, even if it will lead to something different along the way, it's because of that sadness, and it's because you spent that time feeling just sad. Just sad. Not thinking about the next, not just addressing all of the reasons why you are upset and why this is a difficult situation for you. I think that is inherent sadness. And that's why, like, the memory doesn't become yellow and blue immediately. It is blue at first. And she looks at old memories that completely blue. So, I think that there is an inherent sadness to it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking, like, a philosophy sense, like which governs the film.
Mm-hmm.
Is that's an interesting, that's more about the movie.
Okay.
And how the film is functioning.
Right.
But
because if I were to give you an example, I would just say something like in the movie when, like, there's
all I know is
yeah.
If I'm on Instagram, I never see a post saying on January 1st. I never see anyone say my goal this year is to be sad. My goal this year is to be afraid. My goal this year is to be disgusted. My goal this year is to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a happy new year.
No, people say my goal this year is to be happy. Mm-hmm. Happiness is, as human beings, is what we strive for. And everything else is in pursuit of that. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone else operates otherwise. I don't think anyone wants to be angry. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone wants to be sad.
But maybe that's our fatal flaw as humans. No. That we're in constant pursuit of happiness. Where sometimes we should be taking detours to something else in order to have a more fulfilled and satisfied life.
So you like to be sad is what you're saying?
No.
That's what comes down to.
It's all positives with you. It's like, well, is sadness a positive thing? Because you are so entrenched in this idea of everything has to be positive and happy.
So why would we want a negative thing?
But
also I think it's problematic for little kids.
Problematic?
Because it shows that every time, and objectively this is what happens, that every time, even if it's not a means for an end or whatever, if it's for means for some other catharsis that's still sad, whatever, it shows that as long as you show you're sad, someone will come and make you feel better. No, sometimes you're just going to be sad. And you just got to deal with it. It doesn't show you how to deal with sadness. It just shows you, if you're sad, the ones you love... What if no one loves you? No, seriously.
Okay.
No, I'm being dead serious.
Okay.
The movie doesn't show how to actually deal with sadness. It's showing that it's okay to be sad because if you are, then people will come to help you. Right? But there's no what if no one cares about you?
Well, then if you are in the unfortunate position as you are, Peter, in which no one cares about you ever your whole life, which is really kind of sad. Like, even I don't care about you. It's pretty unhealthy. But if you are in such a position, then I feel like you have to view the climactic scene in which Sadness takes all of the core memories, tinges them with her blue sadness, and puts them and has then Riley reflect upon them. So you would have to then, in that moment, it isn't anything about just, well, someone came for me and that's why then I'm able to address my feelings. No, I'm just thinking about what happened in the past, myself, on my own, and as a result, I'm able to process these feelings. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think there is a path for you. It's just, in this movie, it is a family drama. So it is about bonding together as a family, and not just Riley is out alone on the street.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying, that's a drastic example, but I'm just saying that someone wouldn't be able to have someone come to your aid if that's the situation. But even if you had people who could come to your aid, like, sometimes like, your family isn't the answer. Sometimes your family's gonna say, like, oh, I'm sorry, honey, this is okay, and you're still gonna be sad. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with it? Because that's where I think the message is both muddled, foggy, and problematic.
Okay, I think problematic is a real stretch, but okay.
Because
especially in a culture that rewards trying to like push down the sadness and
the solution to my problems is other people helping me. I can't do anything myself. The only way to deal with the sadness is through other people. I can't figure out.
I really don't think that's what the movie is trying to.
No, it's not trying to say that. It's not. But
I don't think that's what's getting across either. I think that's really just like looking for something wrong that you could say, other than like this like really enriching message for our children. You could look at it and be like, well, actually, then you're saying we have to then depend on someone else in order to process our feelings.
I was a very happy child. I was very happy.
But like as I said, there's a lot in just the way of internally processing it herself, and that allows her to have a conversation with others. That's a benefit, but she isn't entirely relying on other people to understand her own feelings. I don't think the movie is getting that across. But okay, let me see if there's anything else that we want.
Probably just go to rankings.
No, I had like maybe two other things.
We're coming up on like this is over 2 hours. This is coming up 2.5 hours.
Oh my god, this is crazy. Okay. One quick thing I just wanted to address. This is a total, just like side point. There's some people have brought up the quote unquote plot hole of, since there is a memory tube that the Forgetters use in order to bring the triple dent gum memory up, why didn't Joy just filter the core memories that were happy through there? Mm-hmm. And my answer would be that Joy is protective of the memories herself and needs to then get them there. And if Joy isn't there herself anyway, it doesn't matter. Because they tried that in the movie.
Why can't she just go up the tube?
She can't fit in that tube.
But she fits in the other tube, so there's different
sized
tubes.
That's a different size tube. Oh. That tube was not big.
It's different size tube. There's lots of tubes.
It was definitely not a big enough tube. But
it was a Cat 3 tube. Tubes. I know about the tubes.
I swear. You said before this, what am I going to have to say in order to be physically hurt by Brian? You're almost there. So just keep going. Okay, yeah, say it one more time. I dare you.
I'll say it after the video.
Okay. So, but because they try it in the movie during the scene with the hockey, which is really smart in that Fear tries to then put all these other than joyous memories and get them into the control center, and it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So, that's addressed. But one other thing, you're going to like this. Oh. You know how I said that I had two flaws with the film? I'm going to talk about something negative about the movie. That I think. Yeah.
Actually,
isn't that exciting?
Yeah. But it's okay because negativity is okay.
Oh my god.
It's fine. Negativity is a good thing. You know?
Again, looking at it so binary. It has to either be, well, is there any value in sadness? Well, only if it is a positive thing in the way that there is joy. Okay. Anyway.
I think the definition of positive is like good thing, and negative is a bad thing. So.
I know, whatever. The semantics, my god. I'm gonna like...
Oh, the definition. Oh, that pesky Webster. Definitions. Anyway, what's this negative thing?
So, the whole thing with the subconscious. The set piece. That whole scene. Number one, could have been scarier. That clown could have been scarier. We could have spent more time there. I think that would have been a really good opportunity to have a more evocative kind of abstract, because, I mean, it is the subconscious. I think it would have been a really good opportunity to have, other than just, there's this big vacuum cleaner. The big vacuum cleaner.
Is he a dog?
We don't spend nearly enough time there in order to really then get across, like, this. This could have been, like, like a pink elephant from Dumbo, like nightmarish scene.
Again, it's more just like a physical space.
It just, well, yeah, like sort of a physical space, but also just. And the other thing is that it's not as entirely thematically relevant compared to everything else. Like, I get it in that sadness and joy are working together, and it shows sadness's worth, but it's not as creative and abstract as Dream Productions or Abstract Thought, and it's also not as like emotionally effective and directly beneficial to us as real people as like the Bing Bong and Sadness scene or something like that. So like it works just fine, but I think it's not like whenever I get to that part in the movie, I'm just like I wish this relished a bit more in the potential of this idea. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay.
But other than that, perfect movie.
Okay.
Let's go to rankings. I have a headache. If you guys can tell, I'm sick. I've been coughing and
You are sick.
I was feeling better. Yeah, I literally knew you were going to say that as soon as earlier.
Well, good.
And so let's go to rankings.
All right.
Let me just do mine first.
Oh, you want to do yours first?
Yeah, I already know exactly where it's going.
Okay.
I literally looked at it last night because we watched this the day before.
I remember you were like, let me see my rankings. And I gave you the phone. And and much in the same way that you said Bing Bong immediately suspected being happy, you immediately gave me my phone back and were like, okay, I know where I'm putting it. And I was like, whoa. All right.
Okay, give me
so
my
Peter's rankings. Go ahead.
Okay. And then we're going to be done.
No, I have to give my
Oh,
rankings.
yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay. Here's my ranking from bottom to top. Cars 2, Inside Out. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Cars 2, Brave, A Bug's Life, Cars, Up, Inside Out, WALL-E, Toy Story 3.
Ooh, oh, really?
Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Monsters University, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Ratatouille, and The Incredibles. Okay. So I'll explain exactly why it's
because
above what it is and below what it is.
I actually expected, given how I think you felt about the film, I thought it was going to be above WALL-E but below Toy Story 3. But you put WALL-E above it, so...
Yeah, because it's above Up. I really don't... Inside Out and Below are movies... Well, WALL-E's on the fence, but I'll definitely say with certainty, Inside Out and Below are movies that, unless prompted, I will probably never watch again.
Okay.
They're not movies that I'm like, I want to watch Cars 2. Mm-hmm. I want to watch... And Up's also in that category. Like, unless you're like, let's watch Up, I probably won't ever watch it again. Okay. Same thing with this movie. I don't really... But the reason why it went above Up is... Because I guess it is an interesting idea. I'm a little more into the concept of this than Up's. But it's below WALL-E because WALL-E, I think, that concept A is more interesting. And also the highs in that movie, I think, are much better than the highs in this film. Okay. Like, I'm way into... Like, I adore... Like the first 20 minutes of WALL-E.
Right.
Like, there's nothing in this movie I adore.
Just when I think about you discussing the lows of WALL-E, you seem to really like take issue with like you just don't care about the humans or like any of that, and you say that becomes.
But
like,
this
the
movie,
main
but this,
driving force of the
and
film.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But what brings this movie down is sentimentality over everything, really, or precedence over everything.
But when you say sentimentality, like what do you mean?
Just the whole movie feels like an exercise in both that self-reveling, like, oh, isn't this so clever? Isn't this so clever checking off this box? Oh, look, the train of thought. Oh, there it is. Oh, the subconscious. There it is. Okay. And also it being super mushy or whatever. You know, I said to somebody, we were talking about Inside Out the other day, and they said, oh, it pulls at your heartstrings. I said, well, could it pull at my brain strings as well? And it doesn't satisfy me as much as I wish it would. WALL-E does. As a filmmaker and a viewer, I enjoy.
Okay.
Even the stuff on the ship, even the stuff with the humans, I still enjoy. This movie just bothers me in a lot of ways. WALL-E doesn't bother me; it just doesn't done as well as I want it to be. But this movie like bothers me about things it does, and that's it.
Okay. My rankings. So I wasn't when we were about to watch it. I was like, okay, I have a feeling of where I think I'm going to put it either here or there, and I think it's really going to be difficult after I watch it in terms of which choice I'm going to make. And then pretty quickly into the film, I realized, no, I know where it goes. And let's find out.
Oh,
so from bottom to top, Brave, Cars 2,
Inside Out.
I tricked everybody. A Bug's Life, Cars, Monsters Inc., Monsters University, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Inside Out,
Oh my God.
Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3. That's right.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing these countdowns anymore.
You're not doing them anymore?
No.
Okay. So let me talk about it, because you said that this is a film that pushes sentimentality and pulling at your heartstrings to your brain. I disagree entirely. I think that there is such a cerebral quality to this film, to the point that I remember when I saw it with my parents for the first time, they said it's actually really cerebral, potentially to the point that it's too much so for kids, that they won't understand all of the layers, and they'll be sort of left behind by it a little bit.
I knew kids didn't like onions.
Yeah, layers. Ha 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 ha. Okay, Shrek. Does Shrek go at the top of your list? All right.
Yes.
So great. So, but what I would say about it is that it feels like such a coherent vision, in the way when I talk about Finding Nemo and the Incredibles, and how they feel like one stream of consciousness throughout. And as much as I love Up, I can understand that there is like a certain point in which you could say, all right, this stuff with the dogs, like I don't know how much it necessarily connects, and like if we're splitting off to a different movie. Yeah, ha ha ha. I know you're the one who says that, so you saying what is ironic, haha.
Well, because you said you try to defend the dogs.
I did defend them, but even in that review, I said I understand that's why, and that's why I put it below The Incredibles and Finding Nemo, if you remember. If you choose to remember anything other than when I... Okay. All right. But with Inside Out, I feel like it achieves that sense of, it is on this single track, and everything is about Joy's character arc and Riley's progression, and Riley being in this situation that she has to deal with, and all the perspectives by which she reevaluates it. So it gets that benefit. It also gets the benefit of, I think it's sort of a comeback for understated, clever, like, humor prevalent in a Pixar film. I can't remember the last time that there was a Pixar movie that was, like, as funny as this, or at least making as many jokes, I think.
Well, Monsters University.
But Monsters University, I feel like a lot of its jokes are kind of easy, in the sense that, like, or at least some of them, and that'll be like, all right, well, then they go to the cafeteria and they're eating garbage. Isn't that funny? Whereas there's a lot more with Inside Out, where it's like, you know, they'll have the things like again, the facts and opinions getting shuffled around, or even like the deja vu joke. Like, that's about like as low as the movie will go in terms of like its humor, and even that's kind of cerebral. But like a 7-year-old isn't gonna get that. A 7-year-old is gonna laugh at the garbage and the lunch. That's
I don't know if I would say cerebral.
Like, not necessarily, like, there's an intellectual quality to that joke. Again, I'm saying that's the lowest,
you
like,
can say it's
it
clever.
will go. What?
You can say it's clever.
Okay, yeah, sure, clever. Yeah.
Like, reveling in its cleverness.
Okay, so it has that, but it also, in terms of just how, like, emotional it is, and smartly emotional, emotionally intelligent, this is a movie that, it's not just it made me cry or whatever, I am not someone who cries very much anymore. And let me clarify, I used to cry all the time. I'm not trying to be like, I'm a manly man. No, I used to cry all the time to the point that it was a huge problem. But I don't cry that much anymore. But when I saw this film, I cried 3 times. I cried when Joy is looking at the memories in the memory dump, and sort of then looks back on the big one in which then Riley lost the game. I cry at Bing Bong then fading from existence permanently, and then we have to then move on from that sort of naive aspect, and Joy has to then move on from her problematic aspect of herself as a result, and like straight up like sobbing to the point that like it's like hard to control was the end, in which then Riley starts crying and starts talking to her parents, and is like, I don't want you to be mad, but like I miss home. It rings so true, and there's such a profound level of honesty that just affirms everything in the movie comes together as a result of that scene. And not just everything in the movie, that like anybody can connect with that, and anybody can see the benefit of the message, and just how everything achieved a purpose and was interwoven throughout, of the benefits of sadness, of the benefits of looking at a situation in a different way, and how a family can come together in trying times. And it really just, it's still, watching it to this day, I'll have a lump in my throat.
From all those years ago.
From all those years ago. No, like each time I watch it, I don't still have the lump in my throat. That same lump. No, it's a new lump each time.
I think it's a tumor, Brian. I think it's stage 3. You only have a few weeks to live.
Well, you know what? I'm glad I spent them watching Inside Out. On repeat! All the countdown to Coco. Countdown to cancer killing me. So, All right, but that's what I would say. I would put it that high. And to clarify where I was thinking about putting it below The Incredibles and Finding Nemo.
That's why. Because before we did this, I asked you what your top 5 would be, and you said Toy Story 3, Toy Story 2, Toy Story, Incredibles, and Finding Nemo, or Finding Nemo, Incredibles, whatever they were. I was like, okay, so like good choices.
Because I was thinking about, like, the scene with the subconscious, and I was like, all right, is that something that really bothers me? But that's really the only thing. And then, of course, there's that other, like, minor thing of, like, the 2 lines that suggest a world building that we're not really privy to. There's nothing else in this movie that I think doesn't fit in terms of, like how it's funny or what it's trying to say overall. And I think it is a masterpiece. It's, like, in some circles underrated, in some circles rated as it should be, which is as one of the best Pixar films ever made. And that's what I would say.
Well, what's stopping you from saying that?
I said it now.
So I don't cry at movies. I cry at, like, bad things happening in my life.
I don't have a life.
Well, yes.
Okay.
This is common knowledge. Okay, well, thanks for listening to this 2.5 hour Inside Out review where Brian and I discuss the deep philosophical questions of what it means to be sad, like, outside of this film.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for a hopefully shorter review of one of our favorite movies, The Good Dinosaur. Bye-bye.
Bye.